Hello, hello. Yeah, all of you aren't awake yet. My friends here in the front row crew is awake. I'll try that again. Hello, welcome to the last day of Missional AI. Everybody come in, find your seat, find the table. This is the last day of the greatest event of the year. So I'm glad you're here. It was cool to see, there's probably a large overlap. My guess is, this is just my guess, there's probably a large overlap between those that are introverted and maybe don't necessarily get their energy from being around people and people involved in AI and tech. And so I thought it was cool last night. Went over to the pizza place over at Lake Nona, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna meet some people here. And then it was like, oh, this table is full of Missional AI people, and this table is full of Missional AI people. I felt kind of hurt because I wasn't invited to any of those parties. But then we sat down at a table, the people we were there to meet, and then just people kept joining our table, which was amazing. So I was just amazingly, it was so encouraging to me to see people spend a whole day together and then not get enough and want to fellowship, want to be together, want to continue the discussion. I've been amazed by the content and just so encouraged. We're just going to do something we do at my church. I'll repeat them for those online, but anyone want to shout out a highlight? This is going to be a phrase, not a paragraph, because I'm not going to repeat that. A phrase, some highlight from the week. Shout it out. Awesome. Say it again. Chocolate milk. Chocolate milk is a highlight. Cool. What? We got a lot of chocolate milk enthusiasm here. Can't wait. Yeah, can't wait until tomorrow. Can't wait for the future of what this becomes. That's awesome. One more. The best destination is seldom a straight line. All right, that's a great highlight. Yeah, I love that. So we have a slide up here we're going to put up about the AI Collective. If you didn't hear that yesterday, or if you want to learn more, we want to make sure that you find this. Again, you can find it on the app, the Missional AI app. There's a link. You can click it, but you can also find it here. You can look it up at that link. This is a primary way that we're going to be able to be involved as a community past this event this week, which is really what we strive to do and what we're trying to create here. So please, please, please look at this, get involved. We'll talk a little bit more about it later. Just to say, we have a lot of, oh yeah, and I want to thank also, I think we have a slide for all the partners from this year, which it's amazing. Look at this. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause. So a lot of you have said thank you to me, and I appreciate that. I'm encouraged by that. I thank you for that. But I have had such an easy thing. There's a huge team behind this, and there's partners that have invested of their time, their energy, their money to actually make this happen. And so this is a huge significant thing. If you've benefited from this, please, if you see anyone from these organizations, please thank them personally. We have a lot of people that have flights this afternoon, so we're going to try to keep time as best as possible. So presenters out there, help me with that. I'm already probably doing a poor job, but let's try to do that. Be back in time from breaks. Let's keep to schedule, and I'm just really excited. I've been personally blessed so much by Stephen Cave, who's going to bring our devotion this morning. He's with the E10 Innovation Lab. He has an accent that I sometimes understand occasionally, but when I do understand, it's very, very profound, very profound. And just have been blessed by him and his perspective on innovation. So please welcome Stephen Cave.
Morning. I can vouch for the extra people that joined our table last night because I was picking up the check. Great to be with you this morning. We're going to start with, I was going to say a Bible reading, but we're going to actually play it with the Lumo series that I'm a huge fan of. So this is from John chapter 21. You'll recognize this passage, I'm sure. Let's see if we can.
When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," he said. "You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." Again Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." The third time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, "Do you love me?" He said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my sheep. Very truly I tell you, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go." Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. Then he said to him, "Follow me." Peter turned and saw that the disciple whom Jesus loved was following them. This was the one who had leaned back against Jesus at the supper and had said, "Lord, who is going to betray you?" When Peter saw him, he asked, "Lord, what about him?" Jesus answered, "If I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? You must follow me." Because of this, the rumor spread among the believers that this disciple would not die. But Jesus did not say that he would not die. He only said, "If I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you?" This is the disciple who testifies to these things and who wrote them down. We know that his testimony is true. Jesus did many other things as well. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room for the books that would be written.
Dal spoke yesterday about one of his children. I was kind of disappointed because I hoped the story was going to end with he drank the milk and what happened afterwards, but it wasn't. But of all the experiences that have impacted my life, one of the most significant is becoming a father, and a father to these three. And the learning just keeps going on. But for me, it's especially significant because it teaches me about knowing God as my Father, something I think we aren't particularly good at teaching. And indeed, I've even heard it said that we shouldn't focus too much on calling God Father because of the bad experience that many people have of earthly fathers. Well, actually, to me, that shows all the more why we need to focus on it, on just how amazing it is we get to call God Father, and how much people need to experience that for themselves. But anyhow, fatherhood impacted me so much in the early days that I wanted to write a book about it and what it was teaching me about God. I even wrote the first few chapters of the book. And all was well and good until my children started to get a bit older. And I started to find that my feelings about them were being challenged a bit more as they became teenagers instead of being so young. So I decided that I would only ever dare write a book about fatherhood and what it teaches me about God if I managed to survive parenting my children through teenage years. I don't have that ambition to write a book anymore. I only have one ambition left, and it's to live long enough to see my children parent teenagers. But one of the things that parenthood has taught me so far is that my kids are different, and I need to relate to them in different ways. What's good for one isn't necessarily good for another. And I confess that came as a bit of a shock to me, because let's face it, no one prepares you for parenting. And so when number 2 doesn't respond like number 1, and number 3 doesn't respond like either of them, you need to keep rethinking your strategy of how you deal with them. But not only was that a key realization for me as a parent, it also brought for me into sharp focus the same truth for God and his children. If I need the space to relate to my children in different ways, then maybe I need to give God the same liberty with his children. Now, that may sound obvious to you, but it's not obvious when your Christian background is like mine. I've shared with some of you before in different contexts, but I come from proper Baptist stock, not the amateur stuff that you have in America. Southern Baptists think they're Baptists. They are only playing games at it. I can tell you, they don't come close to Irish Baptists. Although I do think sometimes us recovering Baptists can be a bit hard on ourselves, as if we're the only ones that are like this. The truth is, a whole lot of other people are just as bad. We're convinced we're right. That's bad enough. But it also means we're convinced that you're wrong, which makes things worse. And if only we stopped there. But no, we're not just convinced that we're right and convinced that you're wrong. We're equally convinced that it's our solemn Christian duty to tell you stridently and often exactly why it is you're so wrong. And so I've been reading through John's Gospel in the last month, and it reaches a fitting conclusion with the resurrection of the Lord. And there's almost a natural conclusion to it at the end of chapter 20, where it says Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. And yet, in a sense, John's Gospel can't stop there, because one thing has been left hanging, and it's Peter. The last we saw of Peter was the colossal mistake that he had made, denying Jesus 3 times, and then his frantic sprint to the tomb, hoping for something. And so in John 21, right at the end, we get that story finished off, what we've just been reading of Peter forgiven and restored and recommissioned, really, as the figurehead for the group. It's a fantastic redemption, although it's bitterly painful for Peter as well. And not only that, Jesus tells Peter that he's in for a tough time and a painful end to his earthly life. Well, you'd think for Peter that should be enough, but Peter doesn't leave it there, because he hasn't stopped being the Peter we know and love. And he looks at John and he blurts out, well, what about him? Like, if that's what the future holds for me, then I guess that it's only right that the others have to experience something similar for themselves. And he gets a pretty strong rebuke from Jesus, who basically says, mind your own business. Leave that to me. You stick to following my calling for you, and don't worry about anybody else. Now, there's no sugarcoating this from Jesus. It's a pretty direct put down. And that reaction from Jesus to Peter has been really challenging me recently, and left me wondering if there are not parts of my life where Jesus might be trying to say the same thing to me. We all know, in theory, how falling into the trap of comparing ourselves to others is really destructive from whatever angle we approach it. One angle is when we feel we're not as good or as blessed or as gifted as others. That can be paralyzing. We either get stuck not appreciating all that we do have, or else neglecting the gifts that we have, letting them stagnate whilst we waste our time wishing that we had other ones. Or maybe we actually convince ourselves that we have those other gifts and we plow on ahead with it, oblivious to the carnage that we're creating. Like, is there anything worse than those auditions for X Factor by people who don't have a note in their heads but think they're Whitney Houston or Taylor Swift or Ed Sheeran? And you know what the worst bit is? Their friends don't tell them. They stand there waiting for them to perform, excited. And meantime, the rest of us are hiding behind the sofa going, oh my word. Listen, watch this. Please play.
Go on, Scott. Good luck.
You're strong and you're smart. You take my heart.
It's my favorite bit is the friends that are so excited for her, going like, there's nobody going to tell her. You know, I mean, maybe somebody's going to come up after this and say, cut out the preaching, mate. You're not cut out for it. Don't do it. But you know, it's terrible. But that's only one angle of comparison. The other is just as lethal. And it's when we're convinced that we're better than others and we compare ourselves to them in damaging ways. That's me going back to my bigoted Baptist past. It maybe starts by seeing things differently, or we just agree to differ. But it can too easily become damning, and we draw lines to exclude people rather than include them. Oh, they're so backward. Or they're way too woke or progressive. Or how can anybody be so stubborn and stupid? Or why are they so blind and don't see the way we see? Whichever of those angles we come from, the result is the same. Too much of our focus is on others. And like Peter, we're in danger of losing sight of what it is God has called us to do. It would be downright foolish for us to pretend that all of us here are on the same page, theologically, missionally, technologically, or whatever. And I wouldn't mind betting that we've at least been tempted, if not succumbed, to the temptation to fall into the comparison trap, one way or another. In fact, some of us maybe would have to admit that we're in it right now, either wishing that we had someone else's role, or someone else's gifts, or maybe looking negatively at how some others are doing, assigning motives to them that are just wrong, possibly even calling into question their calling or their integrity. But here's the thing. We can't afford to be like that. There's way too much to be done. And maybe Jesus needs to say to us what he said to Peter. What is that to you? You must follow me. However, we need to be careful because we can also interpret that dangerously. God has called me to this and stuff the rest of you. I don't answer to you, so you go your way and I'll go mine. But that's not going to work either. I said I'd been reading in John's Gospel this past month, and not too long before this episode in chapter 21, we find some other things that blow the lid off that kind of attitude. Words from Jesus himself, some of which he repeats several times, so we know he's serious. A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. My command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. And this is my command, love each other. And then he goes on to pray. My prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one. I in them and you in me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. For then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. Love for each other. Sacrificial love. Jesus keeps saying it. And his prayer for unity. Next up is Gethsemane and everything that leads to. And what's on Jesus' mind? The unity of his followers. I think he thinks it's important. You know, it is vital that all of us gets on with following the calling that Jesus has put on our lives. And we don't get caught in the comparison trap from either side. But following our calling is never divorced from Jesus' command to love each other to death and to portray the unity that he so earnestly prayed for. I know it's a bit of a tightrope walk. It's difficult not to veer to one side or the other, even because of our personalities. But imagine the impact if more often we could live in the sweet spot of the intersection of both our calling and our unity, and encourage each other to do so. I finished reading John's Gospel and decided to go on and read the other Johannine books, which means I'm now in the middle of Revelation. And something I read Tuesday morning just brought all of this home to me with even more force. At the end of chapter 12 in Revelation, it says this: the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring, those who keep God's commands and hold fast their testimony about Jesus. Satan is determined to do all he can to destroy us and our witness, and particularly to destroy our unity, because he knows, as Jesus prayed, it's one of the most powerful tools we have to impact the world with the gospel. So this isn't an optional extra for us or just a nice idea. It's a vital part of our calling. It has global, cosmic significance. We better take it seriously. Let's pray. Lord, as we head into today, we pray that you will use this time to reinforce your calling on our lives, to inspire us and to encourage us to keep following. But Lord, would you protect our unity? Would you work in us fallen creatures a love for each other that is stronger than death? In Jesus' name, amen. And Christine, please welcome Christine to the stage.
That was really, really inspiring. And as he was talking about comparisons, I was like, why can't I have an accent like that? And then I realized I was being convicted. So, in November last year, I was actually, that's the title of my slides. So in November last year, I was actually trying to figure out, let me just play around and with this generative AI thing and see what I can do building an app. And I went to ChatGPT, gave it a blank slate, and came up with some ideas. And then I wanted to see what it would look like to actually build something with AI at the helm. And as I did that, like I said, I had a really fun time doing that. I ended up not going with any of the ideas because I found an app that had been advertised on the FaceTech's Slack channel called Malachi Daily, which I'd had a really good time using. And I wanted to see what can I do building a Swift or an iOS app with that. So with that in mind, I started and I got going. And I also decided, okay, I'm just going to maybe do a series of blog posts. ChatGPT was able to help me out with things like logos, even actually giving me Bible verses. It cut down a lot of time. I started my series of blog posts, but I've only done one, so don't judge me. But why am I telling you this story? Because a couple of weeks ago in late March, Yvonne, she gave a talk at a Faith Tech online event in which she said a phrase that stuck with me, and it was called faith-driven development. And I realized that what I had been doing before was I was actually been practicing what I would say is AI-driven development. And why this stuck with me is that I was thinking about there's all these different types of development. Like if you are into software, you may have heard of things like test-driven development. And with test-driven development, it's a way of writing code where eventually you probably end up with less bloated, more focused, and better documented code. And there's all these other different types of development that can come up as well. And for example, James Fulton, his talk, when he was talking about ethical AI, at some point he dropped the phrase shareholder-driven development. And when I think about faith-driven development, it's a concept that has been sort of new to me, and I've been learning a lot as part of Faith Tech, either being in a community, and Faith Tech is a global tech community for Christ, a group of volunteers who come together to steward their God-given gifts in kingdom building work, and I've had an opportunity to practice that as well, in that also as being part of Faith Tech's staff, which is also giving me an opportunity in how they do a lot of different things in what is called faith-driven development. And quickly, just a quick background about myself. I am at Faith Tech. I am a Global Labs director, and some of the things that I've been doing there include focusing on frontier technology, of which AI is one of them, and it really fascinates me. And as discussions are continuing to grow at this conference and around the world around AI and all of the potential as well as the challenges, I want to kind of like propose what is a better way of building AI. And it could come down to what we have been talking around. And I'm going to be doing this by exploring the Faith Tech playbook and how the redemptive framework that it lays out, which is rooted in what is faith-driven development, can reimagine the world that we build with AI. So at Missional AI 2023 last year, Kevin unveiled what was going to be a published Faith Tech playbook, and you may have all gotten it if you got in your swag bag. For those who are on live stream, you will probably be able to download the book from the QR code. And as the talk, when we talk about the Faith Tech playbook, the overall vision is that there is a uniquely Jesus-centered way of building technology that has a way of not only just redemptively changing the world and the products, but also transforming the folks who build with it. And again, this redemptive technology approach is rooted in our faith and in focusing on Jesus. I want to step back a little bit and unpack what led to this playbook. And when you're thinking about this, when you see some of what goes on in the tech ecosystem and is very much sometimes magnified in the AI world, is that there is this idea that AI can solve everything. Every problem, up to and including ushering in this mind meld of machines and humans, and potentially cheating death. A spoiler alert, Jesus already did that. So this killer app trap AI thing is alive and well, and the playbook highlights some of the challenges around that. But the other thing that the playbook also thinks about is the fact that there is within the community of tech this gap or this distinction or this disconnect between our faith and so our workplace. For example, when you go to work, the people at work may not understand your faith, and sometimes when you go to church, or the community might not understand you. And I'm reminded when Gregory gave his talk yesterday, he talked about coming to the Missional AI conference. It's like, oh my God, these people, they get me. And so sometimes people, when they come to these faith tech communities, they're like, oh, these people, they actually get me. But sometimes when you are in a workplace or in the tech ecosystem as a faith person, you may think that, oh, if I want to do something missional, I have to probably leave my job. There's this concept of that you cannot influence your work by your faith. But what if we could help Christians in the tech space build in a way that rejects these societal norms and encouraging of bringing their own true self and their unique giftings even in the way they're built? So this is the way, this is the redemptive way, this is a Jesus-centered approach that I will unpack. And I start by going back, and generally in the world, there are sort of three different ways of the way people build technology. And first is what we can think of as reckless. And reckless is a way that you're building fast, you're moving fast, maybe shareholder-driven development, or maybe you're just so excited about building things that you don't think things through. As an example, after ChatGPT came out, and I was like thinking about this, and I sent a very excited message to my family. I was like, I got this really great idea. I just finished binge watching Netflix show. What if I could just create this generative AI and it could just create movies for me that I could watch endlessly, and I would just be like, I could tell you which characters I want. And then some really wise person in the faith tech community pitched like, that's not a good idea. So not only will you just get this dopamine hit and you just be like stuck in the screen, everybody else will probably be doing the same thing. It's like TikTok on steroids, and this is just something that is not gonna be eventually good for humanity. I really love that aspect of accountability that I got there. That's just like a fun example of something that was just a thought experiment. But sometimes with AI and technology, things can go really wrong where physical harm can actually take place. As an example with GM, they had to recall their driverless cars because something happened, a pedestrian got stuck under the car, and it didn't actually react in a way that would have been potentially the right way to react if a human had been involved. We also got examples of sometimes what might take place with chatbots and OpenAI and all of these different things. A lot of work happened in the background in terms of labeling the data so that what you see when you actually type in a query is not going to be the result of a lot of what happens in the internet, because it's trained on a lot of bad data. So there's actually data labelers who go in and clean the data, and those folks have to look at a lot of really bad things to get you to the point where you are seeing things that are generally safer, but they don't get paid a lot of money. And a lot of them are at the whim and the mercy of some of these tech companies who may just pull the rug from under them. And the tweet that you saw here was somebody basically trying to stand up for them. There's also the example that can happen. We've heard of fake news or deep fakes, and at a talk, yesterday, someone unpacked the story of Taylor Swift or Zelensky or these things and these news stories that come out and just basically try to get you to believe something. But what other things that could happen too? You could have perfectly valid and real stories, but then somebody tries to tell you that it's actually fake. And that's something that's called like the liar's dividend. So what is real? Deception. These are things that are going to be things that you need to think about. Like, it's almost like, did God really say that type of moment? And you just feel like that's happening over and over again. And this is reckless technology in action. What about the next stage? When you think about responsible, people want to now try to do better. They're thinking about how do you build technology where you're taking a pause, you're thinking things through, you're basically trying to see, am I trying to do the best for the world? It's like you're thinking about justice. And lots of examples around this that I've seen. Sometimes people over-rotate. You've got companies who build things, like I said, safety or align, say, large language models so that they are sort of potentially gelling more with human values. And sometimes you'll see DALL-E and then Gemini most recently might over-rotate as they're thinking about handling bias. And there's been examples that I've seen. For example, I talked about sometimes creatives may have their content sucked up by these large language models to the point where they actually can't make a living. And they've seen some papers like Nightshade, which was created by University of Chicago. And what they're looking at is actually try to poison the data that's actually being used by large language models so that their artwork cannot show up in the search results, and sometimes it can even confuse the large language model. So if you're looking for cat, it might show something else. So if people kind of taking back control of some of these things to just make sure that justice is served. And I've heard a lot of talks at this conference that are also kind of advocating for this. And this is responsible AI, and we're thinking about, you're thinking about things like fairness, you're thinking about things like bias, and there's been a lot of good talks around this. But there's a third way, and here is where we're talking about redemptive technology. Examples, there are many, again, that I've heard at these conferences, but there's things like examples that I've heard of seen. Most recently, the Apologist is a faith tech project, and it's trying to put together, as it builds a large language model, and a way for people to answer questions, thinking about the person behind the question. Empathy is some of the ways that you're building. With Mark Sears and the folks at Sprout Studio now, they actually had a chance to share about Cloud Factory, and Cloud Factory is, they know more about it, but it was like a really cool thing where they're actually thinking more about the data labelers and making sure that even the folks who are building with their AI solutions are being taken care of. And I put another one in here because I kind of really like it. I saw it at a conference last year, and it's a companion robot for the elderly to just help them in isolation. And what they're trying to do there is they want to make it really, really clear that it is not AI. It doesn't even have a face on it, so you're not even going to mistake it that it's human. And there's a lot of compassion and empathy that goes into building the robot, and it even, things like data privacy, if the elderly person is sick or something's going on, before they even send the information to, say, a doctor, they're going to ask the person for permission. And there's a lot of things that are done behind the scenes to make sure that it's safe. So these are like the three different types of building technology. You've got reckless, you've got responsible, and then you've got redemptive. The third one, we want to talk about digging a little deeper into the redemptive technology way. So when you think about redemptive technology and applying the framework, one of the things you want to think about, you want to live by the Spirit. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday, Pele, and he's like, I love a lot of these talks, but I want to see where is the Holy Spirit and God in this. So with the redemptive technology, a lot of it is framed around living by the Spirit. And part of it is like you want to give up power and control. Contrast that with the way the world has been doing a land grab of how do you build these large language models. A lot of the big tech companies and the incumbents who already have access to the data, they already have access to a lot of the compute power and all of the data reach that they've amassed. But giving up power and control is a slightly different way of thinking it. It's a different way of, instead of just saying, I'm going to build things really fast, slow down, think about it, and build in a different way. Relying on the Spirit for guidance in everything that you do, and you want to make sure that you're rooted in that. And we'll talk deeper into how to put that into practice. And then if you find your identity and freedom in Christ, then it just frees you up to build in a way that honors God-ordained identity. You're not trying to prove something, you're basically glorifying God. And some of the values around redemptive framework, when you're applying it, is seeing people as image bearers, and the value and the human dignity is going to basically dictate what you do, how you think about privacy and transparency, because people, you're going to put people first. And this is a hot topic in the AI circles, especially with the thinkers, and they're talking about what does it mean to be human. Is something that I've been learning. Again, when you're designing AI that respects privacy and that promotes fairness, when you look at some of the example that I talked about before, this is what you are going to be zeroing in on. And there are all of these different frameworks, like the trustworthy framework for AI that talks about do no harm, whether it's physical, emotional, financial, et cetera, and how you build your AI on top of it. But when you're thinking about redemptive technology, you're just basically taking it to another level. And even as you are building some of your AI solutions, you're wanting to look about how you're fostering like the diverse teams, how you're thinking about that particular person. When Stephen talked about each one of his children being different and having to figure out how to work with each one of them. It's the same thing. The whole community and the people you're building with are going to be different, and you want to think about them and how it's going to affect each one of them. And lastly, is one of the things that is in applying the framework, there's also the concept of you want to advance love. Clicker's working. So again, I really like the talk that Mark Sears gave yesterday, and if you didn't have a chance to check it out, he was talking about AI and deepening relationships. So the AI that you build and the systems that you create should deepen these relationships. And if you do this, another way that you can advance love, it's tied to the other one, is you want to prioritize transparency and the accountability in how you develop things. And with tech builders, you just have like higher table stakes when it comes to these things around transparency and accountability. And again, if you're building AI, hopefully you're doing it in such a way, if you have a chance to do so to advance love. You want to make sure that your projects are focusing on how do you point people back to Christ. And sometimes it's not overt, but if you can do it, that's great. And at Faith Tech, in the community of tech builders, projects that we tend to work on and build with the community are things that focus on the local church, on the marginalized, or even on evangelism. Because when you are loving God and loving others, that's one of the greatest commandments that Jesus left us. And with tools in the practice, we want to make sure that we continue to promote that. So with that in mind, kind of like thinking about this, let's get a little bit more practical in how you actually do this in community. So we talk about this 4D cycle, which is inspired by the Agile methodology and also by some of the work that went on with Praxis, and Andy Crouch was also instrumental on this. So when you look at each one of these cycles, there are tools and practices that you can put in place to go through it. For example, in the first phase, which is the discover phase, you want to see those affected by Christ, by the problem that you're trying to solve through the lens of Christ. And some of the same things that we talked about, you want to value people as image bearers, and you want to lament and go through this process of like, how is what I'm building going to influence or increase bias? What am I building that's going to like decrease privacy? Am I thinking about the people that are their jobs are going to be displaced? And is what I'm building widening inequalities? And you want to lament and go through this whole process even before you start to build. So you don't want to tack on AI or anything or this whole framework at the end of your build. Just like people in regular software development, when they're thinking about security, don't want to think about security at the end. It's obviously too late, usually by then. You want to make it a part of your whole process. So seeing those affected through Christ, through the lens of Christ, is going to allow you to actually do this. The second stage of the process is going through a discernment process. And when you're going through a discernment process, you're actually seeking God's wisdom. This is where the Holy Spirit is coming in, and as you're walking through it, you want to go through and explore and evaluate the AI solutions through a redemptive lens. And sometimes that means that there are certain things and certain solutions or systems that you're not going to use. If maybe, for example, you say, I'm going to reject that data set because that data set is biased, or that data set contains things that I just don't think I should be using as part of my values. You're also going to look at receiving, maybe instead of building that entirely new chatbot or this new language model, look and see if there's something that's already out there. That could be a way for you to steward your resources well, instead of trying to go in and build something from scratch. There might be an opportunity to reimagine what's already out there. So take some time and go through and see what's out there as well. And in the talk that Eric gave yesterday about open source, he's trying to encourage this collaboration, and this conference is about collaboration, so there could be opportunities to share the work or even make it open source so others can benefit from it. And at the end of the day, there might be a possibility where there's nothing that's out there that you can actually take and reuse, and it's not fitting your needs, and that in a way that you can go in and create something new. So this is the discernment process, and then the next step of the process is basically now you're getting into the development aspects of it, and as you're developing, you're making sure that the Spirit is front and center as how you're developing, keeping in mind all of the different values that you had from the get-go. And you also want to make sure that you're always building and choosing or designing the algorithms of the AI systems, how you're cleaning the data sets, what you're thinking about, who's creating the data sets, are they being fairly compensated? All of these different things should be something that you're thinking about. And if somebody comes to a decision that if they're using your system, are you able to give them an idea of why that decision was made, especially if it's like a large language model? Some things are really hard to do within AI systems, but if we have a higher calling, we challenge you to do that as well. And then the other thing is when you're actually done developing, and this is usually an iterative cycle, at the end of the day, how do you figure out that you actually built something that was meaningful? This could be like an upside down Sermon on the Mount thing where it's not about how much money you made or how fast you went to IPO. It could be the way we think about this, and this echoes again the talk that Mark gave yesterday, is you measure impact through the deepening relationship. And sometimes we think about it like friendship compounded over time. And I had a chance to do this in one of the projects, and how I came to know about Faith Tech was through a hackathon where we got to build a project called Sound of Your Love. And through that project and stepping with people for weekly over a 3-year period, I was able to start by just building a project, tech solution, but then it became meeting weekly, praying with each other weekly, and it became a relationship that was more important than the actual product that we built. I'm going to quickly kind of walk through a kind of like a contrived example of going through this, this whole process of like building this talk. So in building this talk, I'm like, let me see what it looks like to kind of use this faith-driven development. And some of these aspects could be applied to any AI product that you're building. And as I was going through this, usually my process is just to go start doing things really fast. And then this time I'm like, okay, what do you want me to talk about, God? I'm like, any day now. The people want a slides. It just became like an exercise in a little bit of anxiety. But as I went through this, I also started with just a lament session. So just like Nehemiah when he was building, going through the wall, and he saw the broken walls, this is an example. So I wrote a lament for those whose data had been misappropriated by AI technology. And I wrote a lament for those whose lives have been negatively affected by AI decisions that they cannot challenge or do not even see. And I wrote a lament for those who do not see what's coming for them when they use AI-centric products. And then I wrote a lament for those who are terrified of all the bad things they believe AI will bring. And I wrote a lament for those who are overly optimistic about all the good things they believe AI will solve, and that sometimes is me. And I wrote a lament for the future Nehemiahs who can help build those broken down walls of Jerusalem we find ourselves in. I wrote a lament for Christians in big tech companies who feel alone in the battle. I definitely identified with that. And I wrote a lament for AI practitioners and the ecosystem they will influence in the future. And as I was thinking about this, what was my talk going to be about? The next stage in the process is I started to see what is it that I should not talk about, reject, reuse. And when it comes to rejecting, some of the things I'm like, okay, transhumanism, obviously not gonna go with that. I'm overly optimistic, probably gonna temper that a little bit. And when I looked at receiving, I'm just gonna happily consume the things that people have done. There is so much good content out there. When I looked at Reimagine, Gen AI, so many tools out there that can help you actually do the images, as you can see, help you with some of like your thinking, your outlining, your structure. But I wanted to put all of this under the authority of and discernment of God's Spirit. And obviously, the Faith Tech Playbook was the underpinning of everything in this talk. I didn't really have to create anything new because a lot of these things, people have already done a lot of this work, and I'm sure that I could just benefit from all the things that they have done. And obviously, as part of like the development phase, there were a lot of podcasts that I could listen to. I love Daniel Whitenack's Partners, Practical AI. I kind of like see that a lot. There's a lot of work, podcasts, articles. I prayed a lot. I procrastinated even more. I attended AI Forum, got jazzed up. There were a lot of spirit downloads that I walked through, and then finally created an abstract and outline, and at the very last moment, I was able to get this thing done under guidance of the Holy Spirit. But this is just an exercise in just this, but there are other ways that you can actually take this and apply this in anything you build, and it's not just AI, but it's just like a kind of a good blueprint. I want to kind of like think about some of the things that I'm really excited about the future of AI, but I'm also not as excited about the future in AI if it isn't redeemed by a community of people like yourselves and practitioners who are led by the Spirit. The purpose statement for Faith Tech is to awaken a Jesus revival in and through tech, and AI is a big part of that. So this is something that I am especially passionate about. And in the foreseeable future, we want to see one that promotes AI and then promotes human flourishing and justice and love of God and love of others, and that's when we're going to get to this point. And I invite you to read the Faith Tech Playbook if you haven't done so. Potentially, you can find a way to practice it in your development workflow. I highly encourage it. And be a part of the open dialogue that's going on. You've heard this spoken about a couple of times, but join the AI Collective. Continue the conversations that are going to happen after this conference, because things are changing so fast. We'd really love for you to stay engaged. And if you're interested in being part of the Faith Tech community, there are about 38 communities around the world. Join one. Just go to faithtech.com. In fact, if you're around this evening, there's a meetup happening right here in Orlando. I don't think it's going to be easy. There are a lot of challenges with what we are doing together here. And the challenges are many, but I am very optimistic, as you've probably heard me say enough times. So as we look into the future, I'm on fire. I'm seeing what's going to happen. I don't think my optimism is displaced, because I always believe that in my conversations, God is always in control, and he never has, and he never will give up on redeeming the world. And this is a world that I think can be transformed by AI that's redemptive. And it's waiting for us to go out and do it together, to build it together. So excited to see that happening, and excited to see what we all build. So thank you. And next up, we have an AI and faith panel. Let's see.
Good morning. So I was up here yesterday talking about ethics. We did a design sprint yesterday evening, and a lot of the talks this week have been about collaboration. And I felt like we really had this opportunity yesterday to do a lot of that collaboration together and really kind of begin that conversation around ethics. We had about 15 or 20 people join us for that sprint, which was really great, and representing 5 or 10 different organizations. And it's really just a first step in this process of collaboration. And as an advisor with AI and Faith, I'm excited for how AI and Faith is involved in making that happen. If you don't know about AI and Faith, you can check them out at aiandfaith.com, and they are an organization of about 170 different religious experts in AI and faith. It's very simple. But today we wanted to bring this panel up and talk a little bit more about collaboration and what that looks like and how that has come out of this conference over the past couple years, and even is coming out of this conference this week. And so I wanted to bring these people up because they've all been collaborating in some way, and to simply talk together about what that has looked like so that as you are leaving this conference today, you maybe have some ideas of what next steps could look like for you, for your organization. And so I'm going to sit down here. So I'm going to start with Thomas and Gregory. So the two of you met last year at this conference, and you really connected, and some collaboration has come out of that. And so I would love to hear sort of the story a little bit about that, how that's come about, and what were some of the practical steps that you guys took to make that happen.
I say, Gregory, you're more extroverted than me, so you can do it.
Yeah, okay. Morning, good to be here again.
Don't look so excited.
No, my mind is right now kind of editing and self-censoring, but I think I'm going to give the unvarnished, as Thomas likes to say, not dressed up for prom version of the story. So never heard of Thomas or met him at all until last year. Heard him, he came up and he had a short talk about this project he envisions about using the power of AI to do matching in discipleship groups. In real time with my local church back in Dallas, we continue to struggle with that. There's spreadsheets full of people, and you have this bucket of people that want to be discipled, and you have, another bigger bucket of people that are potential disciples or disciplers, And in our men's ministry specifically, which is what I'm involved in, I'm sure it goes on in the women's ministry too, but I'm involved in the men's ministry, so I know about that. In the men's ministry at my church, it's a big effort. Like we are very adamant about men need to be constantly discipling and being discipled. So this is a real problem we were trying to solve. So I immediately was drawn to not so much Thomas, because I didn't know him, but the idea. And I thought, this is an opportunity. Like, this is a problem I need solved. Let me partner with this guy who I have no idea who he is, and let's see what we can get working. If you heard me speak yesterday, you pick up that I'm a very, let's execute. It doesn't need to be pretty to start, but let's execute. Thomas, I think, is the opposite end of that spectrum. So if you think, if we're painting some picture of a romantic, and we met and we hit it off and, boom, and this app popped out to shoot. It wasn't like that at all. I was over here feeling like we're not moving fast enough. Let's go. Thomas is being very meticulous about we need to get structure in place. And those two things don't intuitively work well together. But because both of us, I heard in what Thomas said, this is his heart. Like he said about 15 times in a 15-minute talk, I'm not doing this for the money. I don't want to get VC, venture capital backing. I want to be able to do this in a responsible way to where it's really ministry focused. That spoke to me. So because I heard his heart is aligned with my heart on the ministry aspect of it, I was willing to sacrifice and say, look, even if our work methodology or approach isn't equal, I believe this is of God. I have to lean into it. And one of the speakers yesterday spoke about faith-based risk. I took faith-based risk. Like, this is a risk. I feel we should be doing this different, or we could be doing it faster or slower or whatever. But because I believe this is of God, and because I firmly believe humans are not built by God to do things in silos. In anything. God, made earth. I'm not going to go into the whole Genesis diatribe now, but everything was good. He saw the earth, he saw the sky, he saw the waters, he saw this, and every day he'd reflect back, Yahweh, it was good, it was good, it was good. The one thing he said wasn't good, I saw that man was alone. It's not good. Like from the onset, we are not built for no community. So even when it's uncomfortable, My suggestion is collaboration is probably not going to be easy. You're going to hear romantic stories about how it ends well. It probably ended well because people were stubborn and they stuck with it. Some cases in the corporate world, they stuck with it because they see the dollar figures at the other end. I would hope in this room we stick with it because we see the vision on the other end. We see God's calling on the other end. We see purpose on the other end. But if you stick with it, I believe there are good outcomes.
So,
World's longest answer for a short question.
That's a great answer. Gregory says he's not a preacher, but
Exactly.
I think we know differently. The Spirit of the Lord is upon you in some ways, which is great.
Matthew
so
2,
thank
but
you.
not the nice part of Matthew. So I'll
Yeah, Thomas, what's your take on this collaboration?
Oh gosh, there's so many. Let me try to. Brevity is the sole reason here. So many things came out of last year's MEI conference because we pitched this idea. I met Yvonne Carlson, who's been just amazing on so many levels as a collaborator, professional, colleague, and friend and sister in Christ. So that came out of this. I'm involved with some GMO stuff on her advisory board, which turned into being involved in another board with Kingdom Analytics, which turned into some other stuff. That came out of the MAI conference, and she's part of Disciple IQ, which is that company that Greg is referencing, which is doing matching. And I just want to highlight one thing. Be careful on what foundation you build. I love what you're talking about with AI and the responsible AI, but I have been the victim and the perpetrator of the thing called capital and a love of money for my entire career. I have an MBA in finance. What you all love to think about here and dream about and collaborate with your colleagues to change the world and help the church, you're going to go put a lot of money and heart and time into code and marketing and go-to-market strategies. But if it's built on a foundation that's rooted in the love of money, it will become corrupted. And I have worked for lots of faith tech companies and advised them and been part of them, and do not be deceived. You can either serve God or money. So one takeaway I hope you have in collaboration is to get into an accountability structure with whatever you're doing with AI and say, please, brother or sister, I'm greedy. And I live in a capitalist world where I see 17,000 ads a day, and my heart is scared, and I'm going to want money. Hold me accountable. So please, if you're going to do something AI, do that, because it's a gold rush right now. We all know it. AI people are now almost like NFL draft picks, right? Oh, I got a new data scientist. He worked for Elon Musk, and they're making 6, 7 figures. Be careful. Be held accountable. Collaborate with someone to help hold you accountable, because you are blind to your own greed. You are. I got tons of friends, and it is shocking what they justify that are believers that go donate millions of dollars and still are full of greed because they're blind to it.
So accountability is one aspect of collaboration. What were some of the first steps you guys took out of last year's MAI?
This company, because we didn't want to take any venture capital because everything I just mentioned. And so we started with a core team of people, ABHE, which is the Association of Biblical Higher Education. The president of that loves the idea and wants to roll it out across all 160 schools. So they sponsored us to kind of host an event. So we had another almost like mini working session design sprint, which turned into monthly meetings and a slow launch of a product that actually we soft launched in February at ABHE's Natural Conference.
Cool.
So over the course of 9 months, we met every month, and Gregory was like, we're not doing enough stuff. Anyway, so that's one thing. But if I could highlight one thing for all of you, conferences are exciting. They're fun. You meet a lot of people. Very few people actually follow up. It's shocking to me. It's like 1 in 10. And it reminds me of the story of the lepers that got healed, right? How many said, whoa, I need to thank Jesus, right? So for point number 1, please do this. There are a ton of people here that volunteered their time, that have no time to make this conference happen, right? There's not some big bankrolled situation making this happen. It's Yvonne, it's Josh, it's Daniel Whitenick, it's, I'm going to forget some names. There's a bunch of people involved. Thank them. Send them a text, not just today, but next week when you think, gosh, something cool happened in MEI. Let me thank them, because they gave dozens to hundreds of hours to make this happen. Point number one. Point number two, if you actually met someone and said you were going to do something, try to do it. You will differentiate yourself in the world if you actually do what you said you were going to do, and not some glad-handled thing like, oh yeah, we should connect. If you said it, just do it. That'll bear fruit. Way more than your AI code, by the way.
Facts. You preach too. Let me add the other side of that. So 100% accurate. We met for the entire year. At least, you said it was monthly. I think it was weekly. There was a weekly cadence where about 5 of us met whenever we could, if no one's traveling, whatever, just on a Zoom call, and that cadence was there. So we were building relationship, building structure. We did almost nothing technical. There was no code writing. There was talks about how does this look? What are the exact problems we're going to solve? What are the use cases? What's the legal structure that we're going to put in place? LLC, S corp, like what are we going to do? And that pushed against me, because my approach is, let's build this app, and when the app is about to launch and you need to set up a Stripe account and you need, your payment information, that's when I need the EIN, the LLC, and a bank account so I can connect it to my Stripe. That's at that point is when I need that. Thomas pushed us, no, let's put the structure in place. And I would say probably 4 or 5 months into the year, that's when we started, okay, we now know the use cases, we know the structure, now we did some technical stuff. Now we started architecting our Snowflake backend. Now we started figuring out how we're going to build the front-end dashboards. And that's what we're working on. That's the part that's finishing up right now. So that's the soup to nuts of what we actually did.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. That's great. Marcus, I have a question for you. You and I started collaborating because of AI and faith, and we got connected through AI and faith. Even though we both live in Chicago, we didn't know each other. And I'm curious, from your perspective, what do you think, because you're in the academic space, you're in the technical space, I'm in the business and ministry space. So, we're kind of we're bridging a gap here. But from your perspective, what made it possible to say, yes, collaboration makes sense in this case?
Yeah, I think, so for my PhD studies, I work at this interdisciplinary intersection. My day job is combining machine learning and artificial intelligence with problems in quantum mechanics, solid state physics, and chemistry. That's my dissertation. And being on the side of machine learning and AI, it's really important that I connect with folks in chemistry and quantum mechanics and solid state physics so that I have a clear reckoning of where their pain points are, what the problems are. And I think in this space of AI ethics, there are lots of folks working at tech companies, and they are making ethical decisions without really recognizing that they're making ethical decisions. And I think that is the point at which there needs to be these interdisciplinary intersections of practitioners and folks who are thinking hard about the ethics and the humanities. And that's something I've really gotten out of AI and faith, is being able to connect to a lot of folks. And from the technical end, I can start to break down for folks who are philosophers and theologians some of these technical principles and really unpack where some of my concerns are as a practitioner. And then we can work together, because I don't necessarily, I've struggled myself to recognize instances where I'm making ethical decisions without recognizing the ethical implications of what I'm doing.
Yeah, so we met maybe July last year at a Starbucks, and over the course of the last year have had any number of Zoom calls. Even though we're in Chicago, we still Zoom. And I asked a lot of stupid questions, just tons. And Marcus was so gracious in explaining in so many ways the answers to a lot of these questions. But it started as a dialogue, and it just started as, a conversation. And then at some point we said, what would it look like to collaborate? What would it look like to move forward and take some of this dialogue that we have and be able to share it with a broader audience? And I think that's been really valuable.
Yeah, can I just throw in one thing here? And I just want to give Marcus some credit here. AI and Faith, he's been part of it for how many years?
About 2 years.
2 years. And, he just mentioned quantum mechanics and machine learning and University of Chicago PhD. And he has patiently, graciously come alongside a lot of people who are 100,000 feet in the air that barely can spell AI that are part of our community and help them. So here's one, thank you so much, because he brings solidity and depth and takes us back to reality, right? When I gloss over something and say, oh, we're going to develop that, it's not too hard. Actually, Thomas, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, crap. But the point here is, for those of you in the audience, a takeaway, we need you. We need your collaboration, and we need you to be humble and patient and kind and gentle with us and come alongside us and don't give up. Marcus I've seen him do it over and over, just gently keep going, and it's helped make AI and Faith better. So if you're on that end of the spectrum as a data scientist, please, we need you more than ever.
Thank you, Thomas. And I would just have one more thought quickly. I think practitioners have maybe done themselves a disservice to some degree in describing these systems as a black box. I can just picture some meeting with technical folks and management, and technical folks are just like, oh, don't worry about it. It's just a black box. Stuff comes in, stuff comes out. Just don't worry. And there is this perception that there are so many things that we don't understand about how these systems work. And it's true that there are a lot of open problems in this space. There are a lot of things we don't know. But if you talk to folks who are investigating the technical aspects, there's a lot that we can say. There's a lot that we can quantify about how these systems are operating. And I think that it's important that even though there are some black box problems and some ways in which we can't quite envision what the model is doing and how it's doing it, we do have tools to unpack these systems. And describing these as a black box isn't an excuse for not understanding what's happening, what's occurring at the system level. So if you all are using these technologies, just please try to understand them.
Ask stupid questions is, I think, what he's saying in part. Christine, I have a question for you. So we sort of have an example of a team that's sort of kind of spinning up an organization. You have an example of guys who are just having a conversation and wanting to sort of take the benefits of that conversation and share it more broadly. Christine, as part of Faith Tech, you and Joshua yesterday announced the AI Collective as sort of this team up between Missional AI and Faith Tech. What about those two organizations do you feel like has made collaboration possible in that context?
Yes, I've been with Faith Tech for about 2 months, so it was like, so about a month in. I mean, I've known about Faith Tech for a while, but a month in, I got a chance to chat with Joshua, and he had this heart. He's like this, similar to what you both said, like conversations start here, and then people wait, and a year again, the next conference. So Joshua had a heart for continuing the conversation so it doesn't die down. And I think what Daniel Whitenack had also said yesterday when he was talking about it is that James Kelly, who is the founder of Faith Tech, had always had this big vision, and he's always like, what can we do to just make this bigger? So I think what helped with the collaboration is James was like, this is what I've been thinking about, this is what I've been seeing, and Joshua is almost like feeling like, I want this to be done. So sometimes you might have an idea that's with you for a while, but the timing might just not be there at the right time. So it just felt like this was like almost like the perfect storm of like, let's do this. Right. So the hearts and minds were always there. It just became this is the right time, similar to the conversation where Thomas was like, I've been thinking about this. Gregory's like, I want to do this. And there's like the execute now. There's like, let's think this through. That seems to be what tends to happen with collaboration.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So we're going to do something I don't think we've done at this conference yet. And I just want to give you guys a chance to maybe talk with each other and 2 minutes. Across these stories, what are some things that are consistent about these stories about that relate to collaboration? How is collaboration happening across these stories that is a little, that there are some similarities? So take literally 2 minutes, talk to someone next to you. What are you noticing across these different stories, across these different organizations that's happening that you might take away from your own, in your own context?
I had one thing we talked about yesterday. Here's less talk, more do. So as you do that, can you commit to one thing that you will tell someone else, I'm going to do X because of what happened here, to just vocalize that. So if you're talking about something, what are you going to do?
You have 2 minutes. All right, I said I'd give you 2 minutes. I probably gave you 4.
Okay.
It's great that
I had it copy and pasted so I can even
these conversations are happening. I hope these conversations can continue. And we're going to wrap up with one more question here. And it is along the lines of what Thomas asked. I'm going to ask our panelists. All right, so they're taking a selfie right now. It's fine. It's good. Okay, so it's 2025. It's Missional AI 2025. It's going to be somewhere. It's going to be great. And what's one thing that you want to have seen done in the past year? What's one thing that you will hope that has changed out of this conference? coming back next year, it's 2025, what's one thing that you hope, what's one change you hope to see, or one thing you hope to have accomplished coming back?
Marcus trying to pawn it off on me.
One thing I think that's been really interesting about this conference this year is the excitement around large language models. And I get it. It is very exciting to see what these technologies are capable of. But recently, when thinking about some of the AI ethics questions, I was asked to sort of make like a taxonomy of AI and machine learning as a discipline. And I realized what a small portion of the discipline large language models actually incorporates. It's like you have sequential models, and under that is recurrent neural networks, and under that is transformer architectures, and finally, under that is ChatGPT, right? And plenty of the talks today have incorporated ChatGPT in some aspect. A lot of the Bible translation folks are also incorporating neural machine translation or statistical machine translation at various levels. But a lot of transformers, a lot of large language models. And that is a very, very, very small portion of the discipline overall. I think it would be awesome if there were some folks who are using other machine learning tools in the future, because perhaps the applications are a bit more subtle, but I think they could be quite impactful. There are a lot of tools out there aside from ChatGPT, which I think was a lot of people's first exposure to a powerful AI tool that was easy to start interacting with. But there's a lot available. The history of AI and machine learning is not just Turing talked about something in the 1940s, it was hypothetical, and boom, ChatGPT came on the scene in 2022, right? It's a long tale of history, and I think that's worth taking advantage of.
Thanks, Marcus.
I would say, and I'm going to share a little bit of a personal story. I'll give you all the details, the raw, unedited version again of the personal story. Yesterday after my talk, someone approached me. I was going to say accosted, but they really didn't accost me. Someone approached me in the men's restroom. And any good man knows that's way off. That's totally out. Yeah, it's not. Anyway. So, but there was a lot of that here, a lot of shaking hands. Thomas actually accosted me in the restroom, and Thomas, Adam, and I had our first meeting in the restroom. And at a certain point, why are we all here standing in the restroom? I'm like, I don't know. But so it's normal here, but normally don't do that. Either way. Someone approached me in the restroom and said, hey, really appreciated your talk, and this is super important. And we spoke for a second, and I'm burying the lead on purpose. And I was like, oh, I see the shirt you have on, MIT. You went to MIT? Yeah, I'm a graduate, blah, blah, blah. And the person probably in the room still doesn't realize this, but when I saw his shirt, and pardon me if I get a little emotional, when I saw his shirt and what he was telling me, he nearly broke my heart, like for real. Because MIT is the school when I was in the 80s, 16 years old, getting ready to leave the little Caribbean island that I grew up on to go to college because I exhausted all the schools in the Caribbean island. MIT is the school I was supposed to go to. Like about to be accepted, did multiple campus visits, had dorm rooms selected out, the whole kit and caboodle. And at the very last minute, my mom, with the support of my dad, pulls the rug out from under me and says, I think you need to go to a Christian school where there's going to be some other people around you to keep you accountable. I huffed and puffed, and I was super angry, blah, blah, blah. I ended up going to Oral Roberts University. I ended up failing out of Oral Roberts University after 3.5 years. And I think it was partially spiteful that I stayed for 3.5 years on my mother and father's dime and then quit with half a semester left to go. God redeemed all of that 40 years later, but it was a painful thing for me. And when I was leaving in my exit interviews, the professors and my advisors were telling my parents, my mom in particular, yeah, this might not have been a good fit for Gregory. He probably should have gone to a much more engineering-focused school. And I'm there like, at this point, I'm 19. And I'm like, see, I told you, you were wrong. And, really super cocky and arrogant. Either way. Forgot about that. That was, the 80s, like I said. So, 2 days ago, that was nowhere in my mind. And this guy comes up and says, yeah, I'm a graduate of MIT. And I really want to tell you, and this is the lead I was burying, your talk really encouraged me. And I am going to get off my butt, and I'm going to go, and this is my encouragement to everyone. If I could get one thing out of this person told me I'm going to get off my butt, and I'm going to go and talk to my pastor and use this knowledge that I have, that I'm sitting on, and ask him, how can I help you? How can I help you get over this hump of AI, applying it? If half of the people in here can do that for the next year, I guarantee you, those Barna stats we saw yesterday are going to look awfully different coming a year.
Amen.
There's a lot of people here that have more influence than you realize you have. You might be a tech jockey sitting in a cubicle somewhere knocking out awesome code, but if you could just submit to your pastor, your local church, some organization that needs your help, get up off of your butt and go and do what God has probably put on your heart. So the redemption phase of that story is, I felt bad, jealous to a certain extent. Oh, this dude, this MIT shirt, I should have gone there. And immediately, the devil brought everything back to me, and why I was so regretful, and why I was so angry with my parents for not letting me go there, etc. And then this dude's going to turn around and tell me, you encouraged me. And I was like, yeah, okay, God. I'm going to shut up from now on. You're right. God used the dumb kid that failed out of ORU to encourage the MIT guy. That's the potential that's in this room. Some of you, like me, feel like, yeah, I'm a failure. I screwed this up. God doesn't operate with our limitations of capacity. Like he told Paul, and I'm going to stop preaching now.
Is that what this is?
Like he told Paul, I need you to be weak, because when you are weak, that's when I get to show that I'm strong. Thank God that I'm a failure, so that God can demonstrate himself through me, and I don't get to take any of the credit, because I promised you I'd screw that up too.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
All right. Christine, you gotta go last.
Yeah, that's hard to follow, but Christine, can you do that? You don't need to preach. You don't need to preach.
I don't know, as I was thinking about it, as you said, we are launching the AI Collective, and for me, I just love collaboration so much. Maybe because I just love seeing people come together. And yesterday, we was talking with the gentleman outside, Michael, and we were talking about some of our favorite quirky movies, and he told me about, there's a movie called 300, which I watch once in a while, and he talked about how Leonidas, whoever the main character, went and got an army together of 300, and those 300 people knew that they were going to go and do this fight, and were not going to come out alive, and yet they did it anyway. And that sacrificial way of going into battle. And I've been seeing some things kind of pop up over the last couple of days around faith and fear, and it seems to be kind of like with AI, that also seems to be there. And I've also saw it on my news feed. I opened up YouTube, and there was a preaching that was being suggested to me from Francis Chan titled Faith and Fear. The devotional that I was reading today was talking about Gideon, the story where the angel of the Lord comes to Gideon and addresses him as like mighty man of valor. And there's like, who, me? And then sometimes just kind of piggybacking on that, sometimes we feel like we are fearful that we can't go out, that we don't have anything to value, but God's looking at you as mighty man or woman of valor, because he sees you as something different. So I'm hoping that the sum of our parts is greater than our whole as we go into the next year, what I hope in 2025, as we come back and we're just on fire because we've just come together, collaborated in whichever way, whatever small part we can play, and that AI will be, just like I said, the totality, not just this one piece of it. It's something that we're comfortable and that we're leading with, and we're leading with it no matter what, whatever God's leading, things that might be topsy-turvy to the world, foolishness to them, but it's something that we're doing, better business model, better open source, better collaboration, and next year we can come back with like an even bigger, more intimate crowd with deeper relationships built on what we've learned and what we've gone throughout the year. So that's what I hope to see.
And thanks, Christine.
Yeah.
Thomas, I know that you are one of the founders of AI and Faith, and I'd love for you to share a little bit about the heart of AI and Faith, but also, what does AI and Faith hope to come back in 2025 thinking about?
Okay, let me do AI and Faith a second real quick. So three things. I'm a Tim Keller acolyte, so I was like the three idea. And these are all kind of pioneering things. Thank you, Yvonne. Actually, she gave me a book after last year's summit about pioneers, and I've kind of embraced that in myself. I love this stuff. So it's a bit visionary, but one thing with Disciple IQ, we've got a BHAG that the church will start to measure one-on-one discipleship. So if I talk to the average pastor right now, they know how many butts they have in seats. They know their average weekly attendance. They know how many small groups they have. They know how many programs they have. How many people are being discipled? Actually mentored and discipled. Oh, no, we don't really track that. We have programs. We want to start to track that and see it track. That's one thing I'd like next year to be able to show you some metric that says we're working with 46 churches and they're actually tracking this. So that's one. Second one is related to the Trust Council thing. There was a design sprint yesterday. I hope next year we can give you a report out that there's something that happened, not talk, not academic stuff, but something real that starts to bring some seal of approval to some of our AI work that's practical and not ethics washing, right? That's the balance we have to do there. The third thing, and this is the most kind of pioneering, is I've been using ChatGPT for a long time as an early beta user. You guys remember when we had to adjust the parameters and how bad it was when it started? Anyway, the point is, my heart is that we have a viable alternative to OpenAI that's rooted in biblical truth. So the corpus that drives the LLM is all vetted material. So if you take Logos Bible Software right now, there's some of you in the room, I used to work there. There's 250,000 plus books, videos, courses that have all been vetted by the church, give or take. Obviously, you can be a charismaniac or a Baptist. There's all kinds of stuff in there. But it's somewhat true. My dream is that all of us, instead of going to OpenAI, when we have any question related to our faith or anything at all, we'll use that. Because we all know what's going to happen with the training models, with the bias, with the hallucination, with everything else going on. So I hope some people in this room will be part of that. We'll say next year, yeah, there's momentum, there's something. There's going to be something, and we're going to work with the publishers, and we're going to deal with the copyright, we're going to deal with all the VC lawyer types that are going to say, well, we can't actually give you that because blah, 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 that there's something there.
Awesome. Thank you. Give a hand to our panelists.
Hey, that was awesome, right? It was amazing. I mean, there's so much energy in that. I feel like all I'm going to do is disappoint with anything I say. So I think the only thing I can say is you're on break, 15 minutes. So enjoy. Check, 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 check. Hello, please find your seat. We're coming back for our last round of amazing content. Saved some of the best things for last, so this is really exciting. I know all the conversations are really exciting as well. I was just talking with Jonathan Roby about cool neurosymbolic things, which I could, that was incredibly interesting. But let's come back. We can go back to those things afterwards. I want to keep people on time for their flights. It's my great privilege to invite Ben from BiblioNexus onto the stage for the next talk. I think BiblioNexus, we've collaborated with them personally, and it's just been a pleasure to see their heart for both collaboration and innovation, and also being doers, really putting their hands to the plow and making things happen in a quick way, accepting a level of risk and trying things in a collaborative way. I think that's what I've appreciated so much about BiblioNexus, and they're coming at this with that heart. And so really excited to hear what Ben brings for us today. So welcome on stage.
Good morning. What a great conference this has been so far. I've really, really enjoyed my time here. Had great conversations in the hallways and at tables and in boardrooms, and I've really enjoyed the focus on the human aspect of AI and what does it mean to be human. I think that question came up earlier today. But also the ethics question that we're thinking about now and maybe don't have all the answers for yet, but are thinking about. I think that's really important. I look forward to that conversation continuing. That's not what I'm here to talk about. My name is Ben Amongard. For those of you who don't know me, I work for BiblioNexus. And this morning, I'd like to talk to you about filling the aquifer, leveraging AI to streamline multilingual editing and translation at a global scale. That is a Claude-generated title, I will say, slightly edited by me. As long as there's several of the outline aspects, I've tried to work in tandem here with Claude in particular, which I prefer. In this talk, we're going to be looking a little bit at what the Bible Aquifer is, for those of you who don't know, what we're doing to fill it, go over some things we've learned, and then give a quick demo of what we've been building, what we've been working on so far. Just told not to panic if this didn't happen. There we are. So, what is the Bible Aquifer and what are we doing to fill it? So BiblioNexus exists to support Bible translation throughout the world, especially in areas where there isn't Bible translations currently in people's heart languages. The Bible Aquifer exists to equip the church to do its part to fulfill the all-access goals laid out by E10. Imagine an underground aquifer filled with water that's freely available for anyone to tap into if they have a well. The water is clean and drinkable, and moreover, it's replenished as the rainwater comes through and filters through the sedimentary rock, so that there's always enough water there for anybody to access if they want to drill a well. That's the image that we've used for the Bible Aquifer. The Bible Aquifer is a repository of interconnected resources that are openly licensed and freely available to anybody who needs them. We're going to make them available in 25 of the most important gateway languages in the world. The Bible Aquifer will have every type of resource available for the church to produce and check Bible translations in its heart languages. Resources like Greek and Hebrew texts, gateway language Bibles, Bible dictionaries, translation notes, lexicons, study notes, etc. The resources will be available through a set of APIs that people can tap into with their own app. We've also built our own app to tap into the aquifer called the Bible Well. You can visit that today at app.well.bible. With all the QR codes, I'm a little bit disappointed in myself for not putting one up here, but it's easy enough, app.well.bible. So that's a brief look at what the aquifer is. And now I want to look at what we're doing to fill it. So the first thing that we do when we find a resource that needs to go into the aquifer is what we call aquiferization. So what starts with, and those of you who are at the E10 Summit will be familiar with this, we start with an English resource that may have been written for a largely American Western audience, and take the English and edit it so that it's more accessible for a global English audience. So it's a couple of things, right? One would be simplifying the language, not necessarily dumbing it down, but simplifying it and ensuring there are words there that can be understood by global English speakers, but also taking words or concepts that might have been written for an American audience, right? Concepts like liberty or freedom, if you're doing an article on freedom in Christ, for example, where writing to an American, you could assume a certain a certain understanding of that, given that the place of those concepts in American identity, that maybe somebody an English speaker in Africa or India wouldn't have. And so trying to unpack those things so that the English speakers using the aquifer resources can access them. So that's just briefly what aquiferization is. Obviously, that's really well positioned for use of an LLM to do that kind of work, which I'll get to in a bit. Moving on to translation. So our goal is to translate the aquifer into the 25 languages that are if you look at the E10 Innovation Labs Strategic Languages Initiative, there are 25 languages that are in resource categories 3 and 4. Those are the languages we're hoping to translate to. We're not going to do all 25 in 2024. We're hoping to do 9 in 2024, and then up to around 13 to 16 in 2025, and then I'll get up to 25 languages in 2026. In 2024, we're going to be working on French, Spanish, Portuguese, Hindi, Arabic, Swahili, Chinese, Indonesian, and Russian. And just a quick note, these are the languages that we're working on, but we would love to work with people. If you are working on a Bible translation or know somebody that could benefit from open resources in a particular language, please come and talk to me or one of my colleagues, and there might be an opportunity for partnership there. Our plan is to translate somewhere between 5 and 8 million words per language for a total output of around 50 million words of content in 2024. We're going to scale that up to 7 to 10 million source words in 2025, and then up over 10 million in 2026, aiming for about 250 million translated words per year. I keep forgetting this. That puts us on track to translate almost 1 billion words over the next 5 years of content that will go into the aquifer. To give a quick sense of how many people this will impact, by 2025, 3 out of every 4 people in the world will be able to understand and read aquifer content in a gateway language that they can understand. We're hoping to get 94% of gateway language coverage by 2026 and beyond, so that vast majority of people can have content in a language that they can understand and do Bible translation. Of course, we have to leverage AI if we're hoping to accomplish this. A traditional kind of translation approach won't really cut it. Moving on to audio. So we recognize that regardless of what language people speak, most of the people groups that don't have Bibles available to them are primarily oral cultures, which means their primary way of communicating is auditory. So we can have all this great text stuff in the aquifer, but if it's not available to listen to, it doesn't do a lot of good to a lot of people. So we're looking to make everything in the aquifer available in audio, from Bibles to Bible dictionary articles, in some form or another. We want it all to be available through audio. This is an aspirational goal. We'd have to do somewhere just short of 4,000 hours of audio per language that we did, but we really believe that we want to be sort of audio first in how we're thinking about this, and make sure that that's not a second level consideration. So that's a brief overview of what we've been hoping to fill the aquifer with, and that's a lot of content that we're hoping to edit, translate, and record. And we're going to be leveraging various forms of AI to do that, to get that work done. And we've got a long way to go to get there. We've not done everything, but we've done enough to share with you a few insights that I think are informative and interesting, and I'd like to share 3 with you. So the first insight that we've had is very much that humans are required in the process. I think we went into this with a perhaps naive optimism, maybe, that we would be able to do a lot more with whether it's a large language model or neural machine translation. We would be able to do a lot more with a less human touch, but we were disabused of that notion fairly quickly on as we went into the process, as what we got back was not up to quality standards at all. It needed some human editing and work. So I wanted to give you a couple examples of what we saw. So here, we're using large language models both for translation and for aquiferization. So here's an example of aquiferization. On the top left, there's an article from the article on Ammon in the Tyndale Bible Dictionary. talks about how the territory of Ammon was once occupied by a race of giants. When we ran it through an LLM, it made a connection between the Ammonites and that race of giants, something that would be fairly big news if that if there were evidence for that, and nothing that the dictionary, was making that claim at all. Another example for the title for the article on heart, it simplified it for us to core. We see what it's trying to do and what it's doing there, but kind of missing the mark. And it just wasn't up to the quality standards that we had set out for it. Same is true for translation. So you can see at the left there, that's the English source, and then this is a French machine translation. I don't speak French, probably some people do, but I trust my colleagues a lot, and they've told me that this is representative of some of the problems that we faced. And you can see those in red there. I won't go through them, but it's a similar kind of thing where it's using the wrong words, not necessarily paying attention to context, and adding in sentences where it might not need to be or certainly isn't helpful. And so these were the kinds of things, the norm that we were facing across both English and translation as we sought to leverage LLMs and neural machine translation. So we decided to build out a team of humans throughout the world to work with the AI to improve the translation quality and still maintain scale. So we appointed an English editor for our Aquifer content who is setting guidelines and standards that we can hopefully use to train, to feed to an LLM that will maintain quality more for us there. We've built out language teams across the globe. You can see on the map there that are doing translation for us. We've got general editors in place for each of those languages. And we've built out documentation that they can use then to reference the work. And so we found that we can still leverage machine translation to its fullest, but we have these teams in place who are able to quickly post-edit, pivot fast, get stuff back out there, and we're still able to take advantage of the scale that's there. However, building out this large network of people created several other problems for us, which brings us to insight number 2, and that's that file reconstruction was really a challenge for us. So we started off with people working on files mainly in XML and Markdown, and we sent these files out. We thought we would get them back in relatively good shape, but what we found was that there was all kinds of extra tagging, or things got added in, the files came back malformed, and so it was difficult to then go in and apply our tagging for the Aquifer. And so there's several reasons that happened. First, LLMs aren't consistent, right? Like you can ask the same question over and over again and get a slightly different answer, right? So if you're sending tags, you're sending marked up text, you're getting it back, sometimes it's different. Different organizations handle files differently, so some, depending on their translation approach or things like that, some people, they just handle them differently. We're working with all those different organizations, right, and different people. And then kind of the opposite of my last point, which is that humans aren't very good at handling files. They are not terribly great at making sure that all the formatting and everything stays consistent across the files. So we found that we were running into these problems. And just to give you a kind of example of what I mean, so this is an article from the Bible Aquifer on the genealogy of Jesus Christ. If you look at the top there, we render that genealogy of Jesus Christ as an H1. You can imagine someone rendering that with 16-point bold Arial font or an image or some other thing. We saw all those coming in back from the teams as we were getting translation. And so it became clear that the only way to ensure file formatting stayed intact throughout the editing and translation process was to have people do the editing and translation work itself in the Aquifer, which leads me to our final kind of insight that I'd like to share, and that's that we needed a custom solution. It's obvious that the translation task we're taking on is massive and brings with it a unique set of challenges. We're working with multiple resource types, lexicons, translation notes, Bible dictionaries, Bibles, all kinds of different resource types. We're in different file types. We're starting in markup, XML, docx, PDF, all kinds of different file types. We're working on different platforms as partners. So I think Spence talked yesterday about our partnership with Lilt. We've used SmartCat, Crowdin, Google Docs, Office, all kinds of different platforms various people use. Multiple languages, obviously that's the main focus of what we're doing here. Multiple file types, multiple translation styles. So different companies approach translation in different ways. Different translators do that in different ways in terms of how they break down, chunk things up. We're working with different machine translation models, right? So we worked with Lilt's model, Serval or Axe2. We're hoping to wire up and work with them. We've used ChatGPT. As Daniel mentioned, we've partnered with them on identifying some LLMs to do some work for us. So multiple models, multiple organizations, and all in parallel across 13 countries and 5 continents. So it is a very unique, and I think we felt that it was better to build our own solution, and we really needed to. So what I'd like to introduce you today, the last part of the talk, is to Aquifer TMS CMS. It's what we've built to manage the translation process and to do the translation. It's available, we're using it primarily for things that are going into the Aquifer, but our hope is that if it's valuable, that other people could use it for doing translation and content management. So we'll switch over to the demo. I'm hooking right up to this screen, so I have to turn my screen this way to see it. I'm doing a live demo, by the way, just to prove that I have the guts to do it. That's right. If it's either I have the guts to do it and we shouldn't do it. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so this is the Bible Aquifer TMS CMS backend. Just to give you a brief kind of orientation. Got our dashboard. So you come in and you've got work that's assigned, articles that need to be translated or edited, articles that are in review, and then projects that you're managing here. We've got a list of resources, so by language and resource type, all the resources that are in the Aquifer can be opened from here and edited or translated or managed from here. We've built in really robust reporting into the Aquifer, so we can track progress of translation and Aquiferization projects, but also downloads and usage and things like that. So we're building that all in to the back end of the Aquifer. But what I'd like to show you quickly is what we've built out to manage projects. So you can see there's several projects ongoing in the Aquifer right now that we're working with other partners with Wycliffe on some. But this is our project management. So I'll just walk through that a little bit and talk about a few things. So go up to the screen, click create. This is our project. We'll do Ben's Mission AI project. Select the language. I'm going to select Spanish because it's the only thing I know anything about. Project manager. So this is a person inside BiblioNexus that's managing a project. It's a company. This is where it's I think is a key point of how we've built this out. So we've built it out so that we can partner with companies across the Bible translation world or outside of Bible translation to use the platform, to hook up to the platform and use it. So we're building it out intentionally from the beginning with partnership in mind. But I'll select internal. Same with platform. So we've done some work with Lilt as a platform. We've also got, like I said, SmartCat, Crowdin. This is built to manage not just content on the Aquifer, but if someone does have content that they're working on with another platform, we want to be able to integrate with that and create kind of an overall management process for that. And then, so I'll select Aquifer for that. And this would be the company lead. So this is set up so that we can assign this out to another complete team that's managing a project with a project manager, and that would be the company lead in that part. Then we get on here, select our resource. So I'm going to do the Tyndale study notes, Book of Genesis. We'll go with chapter 11. Chapter 11, and then this will pull up for me all the Tyndale study notes that are tagged to Genesis chapter 11. I move these over into, I can move them one at a time or all at the same time, move them over into my project, and then I think I should be able to hit create. Here we are. Move this closer. Oh, don't tell me I just unplugged this, did I? There we are. There we are. Loose cable. All right. So here is the beginning of our project. So we go in, we've got all the resources and everything here. We've got a quote that we've got to create. So one of the ways that we're doing this is tracking effective words. So we're using translation memory. So if things have already been translated, we're not going to have to go back and retranslate every word. So let's just say there's 1,000 effective words, 1,200, 1,300 source words, and it's going to cost $500. Delivery date, we'll go with the end of the month. Publication date, we'll go with the end of next month to give me time to review it. And you click Start, creates the project. So this brings you back to the main project view. And from in here, the project manager could go in and assign out different articles to different people on the team for translation. I'll open one and just start and kind of show you what we've built here. So open up. So I've got here the English source text and then the text that I'll be working to translate to. You can see our markup and tagging on it here. We've got this button that says Translate with AI. So we've also got AI Aquiferize, you'll see at the top. So we're doing both English editorial and translation here. So once I hit this, it's going to call. I think we've got it hooked up to GPT 3.5 right now, but we're building it to integrate with various models, and our hope is to collect, as translations come back, we'll collect data from our translators on which models have done better and which models have performed more poorly. And then we can grade them and sort of pick the model and here's the best model you're going to be using for Spanish. So here's my Spanish translation. I go in here. You can do your work, post-editing. We've got commenting functionality coming soon. I just saw it in our QA environment last night. So you can go comment. And then once you've done all the work, you can send it to review, or you can assign it to another user for review, but send it to review. That sends it back to BiblioNexus for our final review. Gives me a warning. And then because I'm a publisher and reviewing it, I can click review, assign it to myself, look it over, looks good. And because this is in production, I won't hit publish, but I could hit publish, and then it would be available through the APIs and through the Bible well. So that is Aquifer CMS TMS. That's the project we're building to fill the Aquifer with. Please, I know there's not a lot of time left in the day, but if you have questions or thoughts or want to learn more or wonder how this might help your team, please come and talk to me or one of my colleagues at BiblioNexus. So thank you so much for your time. Oh, and I'm introducing Mark. It doesn't look like Mark's walking up here. Oh, Mark, yes, there we are.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Tabladio. Has everyone had a fabulous time at this conference? All right, we serve some energy. And I'm going home so inspired. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm going home okay, that's right, Georgia, on your mind. Okay, I'm going home so inspired by the Spirit is here, God is here. God sent you here for this time, for this moment. And this is a unique time in technology. And we haven't seen this in my career since, I feel, in my area. There's been many innovations in science and technology, but we haven't seen an innovation like this in my career since the mid-90s when the web was launched. And I was in graduate school. And I was working from home. I figured out a way to dial into our school computer. I was using my school desktop space to launch a website, and I was doing ministry in the mid-90s. I went to our IT director, and they were tracking my web usage, and 1/3 of the traffic in our department. I went to school at Georgia Tech. So 1/3 of the traffic, oh, Georgia Tech, we got some tech people out there, all right. I know, and but by the way, I still love UGA. I'll get to that in a second, as our rival. But, I was doing some ministry at the time in the mid-'90s, and our IT director said about 1/3 of the traffic in our department was going to my website, what I was doing at the time. And you know what? This is a unique opportunity. For the builders, we saw a project in the last talk, and I talked to Mark, who's going to be doing our next talk. This is the tool building time. This is a time when you can make a mark in ministry and make a difference. I'm here to talk about leadership, and I'm here to talk about the leader that God built you to be, right? And I want to start actually with a verse, even before I get into my slides. And hopefully my phone is still alive. Sometimes I go to sleep and then you don't have your verse. But I'm going to read out New International Version. This is what I like for this section, 1 Peter 2:9. A lot of you know this area of Scripture. You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of the darkness into his wonderful light. That's a mission that God has given us. And when I talk about leadership, I think, and in fact, in my personal walk, in the last few years, I've been thinking of the phrase King of Kings. God is the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. Who are those kings? Who are those queens? Look around. Look at your table. Look at the people that you have impacted and helped call to faith over time. Those are the kings. And God's preparing us now. He's got a mission, and I'm going to say something slow, but twice. We do not have a church of God with a mission in the world. We have a God of mission with a church in the world. I'm going to say it again. We do not have a church of God with a mission in the world. We have a God of mission with the church in the world. And, I work for Microsoft. So I was called to Microsoft 7 years ago, but I was called to Jesus at age 19. And that is my calling. My calling is a Christian. And, when I think of Romans 8:1, Christ is in you and you are in Christ. That's how close it is. That's what it means. Let's go forward. So I'm going to talk about AI leadership through community. I'm going to tell some stories of some of the impact I've been able to have at Microsoft. And as I get into this talk, let me talk about my role. My role at Microsoft, I'm an individual contributor. Okay, nobody reports to me. I work directly with customers as a cloud architect, help building solutions like we saw in the last talk with Aquifer, or you're going to see in the next talk with building tools. That is my focus. That's how we make money with Microsoft, and I help people get on board with Azure. As part of my role, I also help build community, and I'm going to talk about that. And that's a side part of my role at Microsoft, but that's not the main thing. That's not what makes money for Microsoft. I'll talk a little bit about my ministry. So my ministry, I have a leadership role. I'm regional director for Ratio Christi, which is a campus apologetics alliance. We have probably 15 people report to me, 4 states, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, which is how you need to say it, Alabama. And we work on college campuses. We have directors. About half the people who report to me are supported missionaries, and I do recruit for that role. But that's a part-time thing. My main role is at Microsoft. Okay, here's the challenge. What is the challenge we're facing today? Generative AI provides a unique opportunity for leaders to realign their contribution to communities. And this is going to be true for all areas, and it's true for ministry. And just in the last few years, even coming to Missional AI, and at first conference I went to was in Dallas, and I was here last year in Orlando. I've just met so many different people doing so many amazing things with ministry and how that's going to affect in a different way for AI. This world is confused. They are confused about God, missions, and culture. And we saw that on day one with the Tower of Babel. And as we all know, Babylon means confusion. They do have a roadmap. And in their mind, it's logical. And we know who our competitors are: Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, atheism. They're going to bring their isms, and they're going to use generative AI to make a case. But you know what? I still come from that apologetics viewpoint. There is only one faith and worldview system that withstands the hardest level of scrutiny: Christianity. That's it. Every other worldview falls apart at some point in terms of logic. It just falls apart. It does not correspond with reality, which is my truth definition. Christians have therefore a new open door to be salt and light through technology. And when I think about AI, I tell my customers even this: search might be the number one use of the internet. And it's not just that people are now using generative AI. And what I find amazing now, that people are so amazed about the false results they're getting from AI. But you know what? They've been getting false results from all the search engines, Google, Bing. There's a lot of false information out there in the internet. And somehow, generative AI seems like, oh, now I really care about that. But it's been out there for a while. We do need to provide there for a place forward. So now, inside Microsoft, here's where I'm going to focus on. Microsoft's wrapping up internal community to promote, train, and equip its employees to grow AI as a business. And now in this talk, I'm going to summarize how me, presenter, have been involved in shaping AI community. Now, internal to Microsoft, we have a community called the AI and ML Connected Community. When I joined Microsoft, I was one of the subject matter experts that would answer questions on an internal mailing list. I answered a lot of questions back and forth, and I think I told one person at this conference, over half the answers I gave or have given in terms of technical answers are how to put Python packages onto your compute. Okay? Because they don't know how to do it. And they might be in a secure environment, and they have a problem aligning their packages. And if those of you who are clapping, you know what I'm talking about. This is a stopper for completing your ML project. But since then, what happened 2 years ago, we had two people leading the community. At the time, it was about 10,000 employees internally decided to be part of this community. And it's an opt-in community. Microsoft has somewhere around 200,000 employees now. So two people were leading it. One person left Microsoft, and the one remaining person picked me and two other people. So the four of us now lead this community. 10,000 probably 2 years ago. Today, it's like 15,000. It's grown that much just in 2 years. Okay, so how can we use Christian leadership in this area? Sometimes it's going to be working together. The working together part is going to be the hackathons. This part has to do with students, all right? And also one-on-one training. And the last one here, conferences. I love conferences. Hackathon. So this is the project I had in 2021. We had a whole corpus of information that people, sent in questions and wanted answers. And we wanted a way to index them and provide answers back to people. So we put a challenge out there, and I got all the information for 5 years, put it into Cosmos DB, and put it out there as a challenge for the hack. We only got 8 teams, and nobody wanted to do that project. This was 2021. Those of you in this audience, you know there's an answer for that now, right? 2022, we did another hackathon. One was AI for body motion, and one was AI for virtual community. Probably got that year somewhere around 200 entries, and representing maybe 200 times 6 people that wanted to hack on that. This year, last year, this was fall, leadership and AI using Azure OpenAI. AI using Azure OpenAI got over 1,000 entries and representing 6,000 people. And we had finally 337 projects that finished something and wanted to be judged. And guess who was at the lead of that? And I had to go find judges. I had to find 80 judges. I don't know how to do that. I used ChatGPT to write a letter with me to convince people as part of their side work to come do this. What's the impact and what is the benefit? I'm telling you this because this is what I want you to do. Not that you would necessarily use ChatGPT, but you do have to describe what impact are people going to have by joining your project. What's going to be the purpose of joining your project? Oh, and by the way, our #1 project, you can look it up, Shiksha Copilot. We were very satisfied after this judging 337 projects that our #1 project was covered by ZDNet and became a big deal by Microsoft after the hack. You say, well, that judging process must have done something. Okay, students. Okay, last year actually, just talking to the audience, I talked with several people that are working on is anyone here working on doctoral dissertation or master's thesis? Okay, a couple people. But I did talk to several people last year, literally asked me, what should I do for my doctorate? Because I do have a doctorate from Georgia Tech, and I was a professor at University of Phoenix. I mentored some doctoral research there. So what I've been doing, I joined several other Microsoft colleagues, and we did some projects with Spelman College, which is in Atlanta. And my undergraduate team, here's what they did. They made a children's book. You give it the prompt, it'll give the text will make a picture. They hosted the whole thing on Hugging Face, and these are non-technical people. And this was last year. This is what they did for their undergraduate project. First class in deep learning. Purdue University, Matt Lanham. You remember Matt from 2 days ago, and also Dan, wherever he is. I met them because of Missional AI. Then I went to Purdue and became part of that Data for Good project as a judge. But even after that, just recently, I mentored like 7 students from the master's program. They had 300,000 images, and they were from a retailer, and they were going to make captions for the website to be able to sell products. So they came up with the whole process of being able to do that for a retailer. Again, these are business majors, okay? They're not technical people, but they still opened up Microsoft technology, and they were able to do that. And then also, I worked with a doctoral student. I was on a committee for a woman who did a thesis on artificial intelligence based on a Thomistic worldview. That's a very philosophical topic, but I was one of the committee members and read that. I think we can have an impact on students. I think there's an open door to work with students that you know, youth groups that you know. You know what? Do you have anything that, any project that you're working on that you can show to students, to young people, to give them a piece of what you're doing? It's a chance to do something. Conferences. I love this conference. I'm also a board member for the Southern Data Science Conference. This happens in Atlanta. This is a secular conference. I go to both Christian things and non-Christian things. Go out there and make a difference. I'd love to see you presenting something. Maybe one of you will do a TED Talk. I have not done one. Christian Scientific Society, I will mention that because for those of you who do have doctorates or research and scientists, by the way, how many of you, this is the time for your admission, how many of you have a degree in science? And I'm including physics, biology, or anything science related, and science is in the title, like computer science or something like that. Okay, so, and then don't raise your hand, but how many of you think of yourself as a scientist? And you know what? You should. You should. You have a science degree. You do not have to be Albert Einstein to be a scientist. If you have a degree that says science, you should be considering yourself a scientist. You know what? Bring your best. Bring your best to your profession. All right, can I tell you about my new project? This is going to be April 16th. 24 hours of AI. I was literally working on it this week, and here's our mascot, Amelie. I proposed last summer, can we have 24 hours of AI? And we're calling it 24x AI. And everybody said, yeah, we need to do that. So we're going to do it on April 16th. And again, I had to come up with a plan, 3 regional teams. I got 11 leaders working this idea. You know what? Someone in here needs to do this for Christians. Someone needs to do a 24-hour conference. I'll be part of it. I don't want to run it. I'll help you run it. Do you have the motivation? Do you have the motivation? I mean, you already got the Zoom or Teams technology already there. Just put it together and bring people together. I was talking about leadership. I'm going to give you a viewpoint on leadership. The book here Leadership Challenge is what I used for my own doctoral dissertation. The book on the right is a variation of this book led by John Maxwell, well-known leadership author. So it's got a Christian flavor to it. So if you want to, learn more about leadership, how to apply it, I would recommend this book. I'm teaching a Bible study now where I took this and I broke it down and got verses from the Bible and examples from Scripture where leadership, and by the way, Bible has anti-examples and pro-examples. And in our Bible study, we're doing both, right? Okay, love to connect with you on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Now, before I end, I want to read the rest of that passage. So let me bring my phone back to life. I want you to think about your call. Why God wants you to do what you do. I think about this a lot. When I think about God, give us this day our daily bread, I think about what do you have for me today? One of the things, too, that I'm thinking about is this phrase, King of Kings. I ask myself, is this a day when God used me in a kingly way? And if I come up with two things, I get super excited. Oh, yeah, God used me in this way. God used me in that way. And that's the way now I'm starting to do this self-counting thing. I'm talking to God. You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. Dear friends, I urge you as foreigners and exiles to abstain from sinful desires which wage war against your soul. Live such good lives among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day he visits us. So let's put it all out there. Let's let, what God has given us. Let's work together. Let's work together, yes. Let's be the people of God. We have a mission. Co-mission means together. Together. Co-mission. And who has a better mission than Christianity? Let's go do it. And now this is Mark Woodward.
Thank you so much, Mark. I don't know about you, but I love the emphasis, particularly this morning, on the human aspect, the community, the relational side of things. And I think in many ways what I'm going to share is along those same kind of lines. So I thought maybe I don't even need to do my talk, but I guess I can do it anyway. I have the clicker here. Right, let's go. Okay, my talk is 10 very easy ways to make sure that no one uses your AI tool. Maybe you don't want to know that, but July 2002, I flew to Kenya on a short-term mission trip. I was super excited to be going to Kenya to paint a school, doing something to make a difference in the world. I absolutely loved the experience until towards the end of our time, one of our team members said, "This is great, but why are we here? There are plenty of local people here who can do painting. Aren't we just taking work away from them?" I hadn't thought of that. Looking back, I'm embarrassed to say that thought had never crossed my mind until that point. I'd like to blame it on my British culture, which I think had subconsciously taught me to think that people out there in Africa needed my help, and anything that I could do to help them would be a positive thing. But was I actually making a difference? And worse than that, was I actually making a negative difference in what I was doing and my attitudes? Was I actually causing harm? 2 years later, in 2004, we met this lady called Mama Bimus, who is a lady originally from the Netherlands, who lived for many decades in the southwest of Tanzania with the Fipa language community, helping them to translate the Bible into their language. We only spent a couple of hours with her, but I think it was very obvious to see the love and the dedication that she had for her time with that community. And I'm sure she had had tremendous impact through the relationships that she had built with that community over many decades. And yet, as we researched the Bible translation that she had coordinated, it was clear that it was actually hardly being used and was having very little impact. The reason was that the two translators she had worked with, one was from the northern dialect, one was from the southern dialect. They'd mixed their dialects in the translation, and the end result was something that sounded like nobody actually speaks. Since then, I've become very aware of how very easy it is to have a great idea, dedication, good intentions, and yet still not see significant fruit from the work that we're doing. And now, 20 years later, I'm still working with SIL, now on an AI team, and I want to keep asking that question: are we really making a difference? Are we creating tools that people will use? Or 3 years from now, is our code going to be sitting in a GitHub repo that nobody looks at? So I think it's very, very easy to create tools that no one will use. And because I'm lazy and I like easy things, I've titled my talk, 10 Very Easy Ways to Make Sure That No One Uses Your AI Tools. And it's actually even easier than that. I think you don't even have to do all 10 of these things. I think even doing one of these 10 things is probably sufficient to make sure that nobody uses your tool. So I want to share some examples of what we as an AI team within SIL have learned, primarily from two tools that we are developing. One is called Aqua, which is augmented quality assessment for Bible translation drafting. And the second is a new tool we're developing called Act2, which aims to make machine translation and text-to-speech capabilities available in hundreds of languages. So 10 ways to create tools that no one will use. Number one, go right ahead and build your idea without talking to users. Bubble wrap. Does anybody know what bubble wrap was first created for? Anybody? Knickknacks? I don't think so. My information comes from Wikipedia, so I don't know how good it is. But according to Wikipedia, bubble wrap was first created as wallpaper. And then the company developing it pivoted and said it's not really taking off as wallpaper. Let's rebrand it as greenhouse insulation. And then, according to Wikipedia, one day somebody from IBM was transporting a computer. They thought, let's wrap it in this bubble wrap thing to kind of keep it safe. And yeah, as I'm sure we all know, that's the one that took off. It wasn't what the designers had originally intended, but that was what the users experimented with and realized this is actually the great use for this tool. So likewise, some of the best use cases for Aqua, augmented quality assessment for Bible translation, some of the best uses are things that we as designers actually had never thought of. So for example, comparing your draft translation to its back translation into a language of wider communication that a consultant is using to check, to make sure that the consultant can have confidence that the back translation is close to the draft. If that made no sense to you, don't worry. The idea is that, sometimes users might come up with ideas for your tool, ways to use it that you as a developer might not have thought of. Another use for Aqua, people have used it to figure out that this part of my text is actually being translated in a different style to this other part. You can see here, the book of John is blue, the book of Luke is green. They've got different translation styles, and that may correspond to you had a different translator or a different translation methodology. And that's often clear when you look at the heat map, when if you're just looking at the text, you might not see that pattern. So that's another use case that we hadn't really thought of, but as users have used the tool, it's become clear that that's something that's very valuable to them. Sometimes as we have talked to users, we've realized that some of the most impactful solutions are not necessarily the most technologically advanced, but they're things that solve pain points of users in their workflows. So when our colleague Joshua visited the Philippines last year to discuss how AI solutions might help with oral Bible translation, one of the most requested features was actually removing the background noise of chickens, for example, from the recording. That doesn't require a great deal of state-of-the-art technology, but it's something that makes a huge difference to the workflow of this particular team and probably others. Notice how the chicken here has 5 toes on his foot. I thought that was quite funny. Number 2, go right ahead and build your idea without listening to users. That's almost the same as the first one, but I wanted to make this a second point to really emphasize listening to those users, particularly listening to the community of users, because they may have very strong opinions about what we are doing, and it's easy to miss those if we're not actively listening. So, for example, we're often relating to language communities. If I create a tool for English, well, the English language community is so huge and vast that it doesn't really make sense to talk about the English-speaking community. There's no cohesive community, and if there was a community of English speakers, it would be so diverse that you can't discern any particular opinions from within this community. But I think that's very different when you're relating to minority language communities. So as we're developing, for example, translation and text-to-speech capability for communities that have maybe just a few 100,000 speakers or tens of thousands of speakers, they may have a very strong sense of this is who we are as speakers of this language, and we are the ones who own this language. If your language is spoken just in 10 or 20 villages, a lot of the people may know each other, they know each other's cousins and grandparents, they have a shared sense of history and culture. And so what do they, particularly the community leaders and the church leaders, what do they think about the possibility of machine translation into their language? Or text-to-speech capability in their language. How do they feel about having the voice of a person that they know suddenly saying whatever words you put into their mouth? Or maybe you could do anonymization, so it's not a person that they know, but then how do they feel about having an anonymized voice that doesn't correspond to any particular person when maybe the relational aspect of knowing who you're talking to is very important within that culture, speaking that language? My point is, I don't know what communities think, and there's no one thing that minority language communities think. We need to take the time to go and listen to each particular community and take on board their opinions as we're developing tools. And I think my experience has been that people are often too polite to tell us that we're doing things wrong. Unless we really take the time to listen, we're not going to hear these opinions. People will just tell us indirectly by not using our tools and telling others not to use the tools. And so the AI ethics policy that we've just developed within SIL, just published a couple of days ago on our website, ai.sil.org/ethics, we say the technology must be locally rooted in the needs of the community. To ensure this aim is met, we will strive to engage early in the process with affected communities. The ultimate determination of which technologies are deployed for the community will reside within the affected communities. Number 3, in ways of making sure your tool doesn't get used, create another standalone, isolated tool that doesn't relate to anything else. I've kind of borrowed this point from Damien. I guess I'm not going to give it back, so I haven't really borrowed it, I've just taken it. But Damien made the point, and others have made a very similar point, and I know I've had conversations with others of you in this room thinking along very similar lines, that we need to be creating tools that interact with each other. And I love Damien's diagram here of sort of having APIs that allow interoperability between tools that can talk to each other. And this is something that we're also hearing very regularly from our test users of Aqua and Axe2 and other products. They say, I love Aqua, I love the data, the assessments, the heat maps, but I use XYZ software. I want it to be integrated into what I'm already using. I think people are very happy to have additional functionality, but they want it integrated into their current workflows, and they don't want to have to open another app or another web page alongside what they're already using. Number 4, don't consider user experience. Even though we're primarily making things available via API, we want to have demo apps so we can get quick feedback from test users. For Aqua, we created a Streamlit app, and our experience with Streamlit is great for demos, for simple things, but we soon realized most of the feedback we're getting, bad UIs, is this your phone number? Phone number input, and you say higher or lower. Even better is the phone number slider. Have you seen that? I love these bad UI things. I'm going to go on to the next one so that doesn't annoy you too much. And Streamlit was great for what we're doing. Most of the feedback we were getting from users was about the limitations of the user interface. And we would tell people, okay, just click here, do this, don't do this. But that's not a great user experience. And the most common complaint was, it logs me out when I refresh, which is not great. In the end, we decided to invest time and effort into making it a higher quality demo user interface. It's not amazing, but it's a lot better than it was. And as a result, we've seen a huge improvement in the user response, not because we've improved the underlying AI capability, but because users can now experience that functionality without tearing their hair out. Number 5, don't consider expert opinions. Most AI tools, I think, that we're developing, all of us, they're designed to mimic human experts. That's generally how we train models, to mimic what a human would do, a human expert. So in the case of Aqua, we're more or less trying to augment the job of a human Bible translation consultant. So when an experienced Bible translator says to us, this particular feature doesn't reflect how Bible translation should be done, we would do well to listen to and learn from that advice. Our AI tool, whatever it is, may be brand new, but whether we're working in Bible translation or kingdom growth or whatever it is, our tool is probably augmenting a task that has been done already by humans for 2,000 years or longer. And there's many people that we can learn from as we're developing those tools. Number 6, make the same mistakes your users have already made. History shows us that having a good tool and a great plan does not guarantee success. And we should know there are many examples from the Bible of people trusting in strength and power and technology and ending up looking very foolish. As we are developing Acts 2 for translation and text-to-speech, we want to be very intentional in listening to how the users, how the language communities want to be involved in shaping the tools and the workflows around it, particularly their input on the human-in-the-loop parts of the tool, so that we can create solutions that make sense in their context rather than imposing outside ideas that make sense to us as developers. I think AI is incredibly exciting, gives us opportunities to do things at a larger scale than ever before. But I don't want to end up repeating the same mistakes as others, just on a larger scale than ever before. Number 7, solve problems that people don't have. I'm naturally very lazy. Apparently this comes from Jurassic Park, I think. Not sure, you guys probably all know that. I'm naturally very lazy. I think it's why I love AI. Why would I copy and paste something 3 times when I can spend 2 hours writing code to automate that? And I suspect many of you are the same. That's why we build tools to make things more efficient, to automate those manual, boring tasks that we don't like to do. But not everyone is like us. While efficiency, I think, is almost universally seen as a positive thing here in the US, I think in many parts of the world, people are wary of too much of a focus on efficiency. People can be worried that we become so focused on the tools and the technologies that we lose the importance of doing things slowly. Sometimes we may gain more by walking than by driving. Sometimes I think it's in the inefficiencies of life that we find meaning and connection with others, and in those inefficiencies that we most deeply encounter God. So I think we need to be asking the question, together with our users, which parts of the workflow do they want to be involving AI in, and which parts do they feel should be done exclusively by a human? Whether we're talking about translation, audio creation, or whatever tool it is in kingdom work, there are probably many steps in the process, and different users and different communities may have very different opinions about where they do and don't want AI to be involved in those processes. Number 8, tell people your AI tool is perfect. This one often surprises me. I think we are probably all used to the fact that AI is not perfect. It's built on probabilities and matrices. It's not built on proofs and certainties. We're used to the fact that a tool like ChatGPT, for example, it can be extremely useful even though it's not perfect. But I think a surprising number of our users expect AI and computers in general to never make a mistake, and they get quite worried when it does. So I often hear, well, if your tool got this thing wrong, how can I trust it to do anything? Or if ChatGPT gave this crazy answer to this question, how can it do anything useful? And I think we in this room are probably very experienced in how these kind of tools, how to use these kind of tools, but many of our users may not be. So I think we need to be very intentional in telling people our tool may be imperfect, and yet we still feel it can be very useful despite those imperfections. Number 9, tell people your AI tool will replace them. In some ways, I think this relates to the previous point. The dominant narrative in our culture is that AI is coming to take over. And I think people understandably feel very threatened by AI tools. And that can lead to a mindset of, how does your tool compare to my ability? How does your tool compare to what a human can do? But I think we need to reassure people that our tools are not here to replace them. And so they shouldn't be comparing the tool with their own abilities and feeling threatened and pointing out where the tool is not as good as a human. I think instead we need to be encouraging people to ask, how is my ability with this tool, how does that compare to my ability without the tool? So let's reassure people that they and their expertise are hugely valuable and will continue to be. And our vision is that the tool will come alongside them and make them even better at what they already do. And number 10, only measure success in terms of numbers and dollars. As I look back on my trip to Kenya, it's not true that the trip had no impact. I looked the other day at the Google Maps satellite view, and it looks like that paint is no longer on the roof 20 years later. But the trip had a significant impact on me through the people that we met and through the opportunity to learn from the hosts. And I think it's a reminder. I like to think that it was equally as impactful for them, but probably it wasn't. But I think, like many things in life, the most significant things are always those things that involve relationships, connecting, and learning from each other. And I think we, as AI practitioners, I feel like we have a unique opportunity in history. We have exciting new technologies, and the opportunity to combine those with the wisdom and the experience and the human skills that are already within the global mission and the Bible translation movement. And I really think that it's in that intersection of technology together with relationships, godly wisdom, I think that's where we'll see real possibilities for genuine impact in the world. So I just want to close by quoting the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 13, saying, "If I could speak all the languages of the earth and of angels, but didn't love others, I would be only a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. If I had the gift of prophecy, and if I understood all of God's secret plans and possessed all knowledge, and if I had such faith that I could move mountains but didn't love others, I would be nothing. If I gave everything I have to the poor and even sacrificed my body, I could boast about it, but if I didn't love others, I would have gained nothing." And we might want to add, if I could create the most amazing AI tools that were incredibly impressive, they increased efficiency and productivity in reaching our missional goals, but if I didn't have love, well, maybe I could still boast about the tools, but really I would have gained nothing. And Paul at the end of the chapter says 3 things will last forever. Not AI, not our tools that we're developing, however good they are. Faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. So my prayer for myself, for all of us, is that we would work to serve language communities in love and humility, and that through that, God uses our tools to build his kingdom. Thank you very much. I'd like to hand over to, I think there's a panel on the future of AI, future of missional AI.
All right. Hello, everyone. It's been a great conference. Really glad you were all here through the end. This will be the final session. No luck?
Hi. If you see a tall South African,
Okay.
send him along.
You know where Koos Fouché is at. Please find him.
Well, first off, I continue to be inspired and impressed with the level of thinking. So even just hearing some of what Mark was just saying and his perspective and his heart behind things and the way that they're building things is amazing. I think this panel is sort of about the future of missional AI as a conference and as a community. And before we get into some of the questions, so instead of hoping that you fill out some sort of survey and give us feedback, now is the time to do that. So we're not going to do like the live pop-up on the screen at the moment, but if you could please right now open up your phone or your computer, go to the Slido app. So the app in the app for Missional AI, the link to Slido or a previous, if you have that already pulled up, go there. There's a few questions on Slido just to give us feedback, what you thought. We want to make this better in the future. And we're going to kind of discuss now some of the thoughts from those who have been involved in organizing this community and how it's developed over time, which will hopefully give you a sense of what's coming next and also how you all can be involved and how we can work together to build up this event and this community. Before I kind of jump into some of these questions, I think from my own perspective, I just wanted to share a little bit of the background for those that don't know. I shared a little bit of that, but more so from the heart behind this community. I think I mentioned being in the yurt with Tim and some of my other good friends here. Actually, I think there's some fellow previous yurt dwellers in the house as well. And so that was, I actually forget, I think it was 2018, 2019. And those were really the leaders at the time in that yurt thinking about chatbots for digital engagement. There were people at that conference, I remember, talking about, I remember people from BCS talking about what they were doing on the ground with machine translation drafting back at that time. And when I came to that was one of the first things that I did after coming to SIL. I'd spent a number of years in industry working as a data scientist before that. I had been in academia before that. And so I really had no idea what this whole missions world was about and who was doing what. And I was very naive, and I think in that time I saw, wow. One note that I had was people that are working in industry and academia that have a heart for missions and have all of these skills around AI and technology and research, they have no idea about these amazing people doing these amazing projects across the world. Secondly, Tim and I realized a lot of these people don't know about each other. These people are trying to do this type of chatbot over here to engage people, and this group's trying to do like on the ground follow-up, and like they're all kind of trying to do things, and it's not like they're not trying to talk about each other. They're just doing it in their scrappy way because they see a vision and a way forward with that, but there's not that communication. And so there weren't sort of the parties doing all of that weren't in communication with one another. And there were a lot of people that weren't even at the table that really would love to be there. And that's kind of what spawned, that was the heart behind all of this, was to say, hey, it was really difficult for me personally to find, like, parse through, like, as an AI practitioner, as a data scientist, how can I be involved in missions, and is there anything going on in that space? And then as these people in different organizations, how do they know what others are doing, and can build on the work of others, form collaborations, figure out what are the right sets of tools, figure out where there's gaps that they can contribute. And so that's really the heart behind that. And I was kind of hopeful maybe someday we could get like 40 to 50 of these people together and they would have a really great time, and it would be wonderful. And now we're here. You can see how it's developed, and a lot of that has to do with the others that are sitting here with me that have said, hey, we're coming from different perspectives, but we share that underlying heart behind the event, behind the community. And as was mentioned earlier, way more so than me, especially this year, these individuals, the organizing team have sacrificed of their time, the partners have sacrificed of their funds to make sure that this can happen. And I think all of you hopefully would agree that it's worthwhile, and that we're creating a space for collaboration, we're creating a space where there's less duplication and waste. We're creating a space where new things are being envisioned and are possible, and we're bringing in people, we're at least starting to bring in people from different sectors that aren't working together yet. I would say that's the sort of heart, that's the aspiration. I would say there's still a lot of things that are yet to be done. Greater things are still to come, and that's what we're praying for. If you notice, like, I maybe we'll do this poll at some point, or it's already been done, but I would say the majority of people in this room are coming from a missional perspective, meaning a missions org or nonprofit perspective. And we've had people kind of come in from academia and industry, but they're sort of in the minority here. And I think about, like, the amazing work that Mark and Praxis are doing, the amazing work that Christine and Faith Tech are doing, and there's so many people that are involved in those communities that have a heart for what we're about, but they're not here. And I think there's still work to be done to loop those people in, to loop academia in. It was awesome to hear Matthew being able to connect with people, but other universities, you know, Mark talked about that as well today, other university involvement, student involvement. We're kind of, it was great to see people like Leo and others here. I starting to feel somewhat old because I don't know how to use a skull emoji, whoever brought that up. And so there's people that are passionate and building, they just don't know about this community. And so I think there's a lot of great things to come, but it'll involve all of us kind of joining arms together and figuring out a way forward through this. So that was my rant. I'll pause there and see if any of the others here would want to comment on kind of the heart and the aspirations looking forward for the Missional AI event and the community.
I was last on stage, so I'll give the others the opportunity.
I think I just want to say, from my view, it's just been incredible to see both experts in this field share learnings and be able to, be here, be accessible for any of us to be able to ask questions of them, as well as I think with just the group of people who are here. There's an incredible mix of different organizations and people that it's just been so valuable to connect with across different places and see opportunities for that collaboration. So I think it's at least from my perspective, been a hugely valuable thing.
What I'm excited about is that when we use the word collaboration, we all know that that is an overused word, right? We can say collaboration, but what does that look like? And I'm hearing the right conversations, okay? So what people should be involved, what processes or systems, methodologies need to be in place for us to collaborate, what kind of platforms, what kind of data. So it's moving past theoretical, and now we're really starting to talk about like a solution or a framework. You've heard that represented by Faith Tech and others. So I feel like the right people are in the room for collaboration. And my hope is that those stories, like we heard about Disciple IQ earlier, projects or even startups being launched as a result of the work that's in this room. But what I'm most excited about is that when I think of the Great Commission, we get to participate in bringing the Word of God to places that have never heard, and at a scale never seen before. So I'm excited about the innovation possibilities.
What's amazing for me normally with these events is it's great, the presentations, but it's the conversations that's happening. And I'm not sure if you've seen, if you come into the meeting area in the mornings, there's a certain vibe that's in the air. There's a certain excitement that at least I pick up. And for me, that's important, that we continue doing that, continue having conversations. If we end this meeting today, the leads that we've made, the friends that we've made, let's keep the conversation going. And not only within focus areas like translation or kingdom growth, but I think the powerful thing can happen if we start to cross-pollinate. And we have conversations across borders. I think one of the things that we have constantly been saying in Bible translation, or that we've been pushing for in the last couple of years, is what does incremental publishing look like? We don't have to wait for things to be done before we can start to use it. And we need everyone else that's working in the field of ministry growth, outreach, discipleship, use the things that we produce. We value the feedback because that can help us to do things better and more effectively. But I think ultimately for me is we have the unique opportunity here to be at the cutting edge where things are going to happen. And I just think we can't lose that opportunity. We really have to grab that and run with that in not an irresponsible way, but in a responsible way. And doing that together, the likelihood of being successful is much better. So I would encourage everyone to see this not as the end of the conversation, but really as the start of the conversation.
Yeah, thank you all. So in terms of the future and next year, I was encouraged already. Speakers, we didn't prompt them, but they're talking about next year, which is awesome. So you all know, the room that we're sitting in here will be no more next year. You might have heard about that in the news. So there's some shifts happening, and I think it presents an opportunity for this community to really reconsider and say, okay, we've done this a few times now. Now that we're getting kicked out, not really kicked out, to be clear, but now that there's a change happening, how do we want to shift involvement in missional AI, and what do we want it to look like in the future? Aspirationally, from my own personal side, I've always desired that this is more of an international event that would involve people from other places that have visa issues getting to a place like Orlando, but also widening and broadening involvement of people that need to be at the table that aren't here, like I was talking about. So any of the organizers, steering committee here, what should people consider about both how things are kind of changing with missional AI and the opportunity? What specifically is the opportunity for the people in this room to be involved between now and next year in shaping what that looks like into next year?
Well, if you haven't already signed up for the AI Collective, that is your opportunity. So Faith Tech, one of the things that they really excel at is community. So that's the reason for the partnership. We realize that some of you may not be connected to a community of practitioners. Wow, we need each other. I love our CFO. He always says, all of us is smarter than one of us, so we need each other.
I remember the first one we organized, which was online, Daniel. I thought to myself afterwards, it was a success not because of us, but despite of us, and that God must have favored it because we really didn't know what we were doing. And for a lot of what we've done in the last 4 years, we've really relied on people offering up their time. But we realize if we want to move this forward, if we want to do it more professionally, we will definitely need people that is skilled in helping to organize events like this. So I think for me that would be one appeal. If there are any ministries, organizations that does have any administrative skills and things that they can offer, that would be a huge benefit, because I think not just us but other people in the room have offered up their time and had to get permission at their orgs to do that. But I think if we want to really move it up a notch, we will definitely need more professional help and input.
Yeah, and to that point, in case you didn't know, I mean, I think everybody who's involved with planning this, it's fractional time. So it's, maybe 10% of our time from our organizations that have been given to this. None of us are focused on this full time. So I think one of the things I would just say is as the conference continues to grow, none of us are event planners. None of us are, really excel and, or do that. We need help. Like, we need broader help in order to make this a reality. And yeah, I think we all in our organizations do believe in this. But I would just say, just from our side, if this is going to continue, like we just need help. We need more hands and more people at the table. So.
And it really bears worth mentioning. I know some of you have come to this year over year, but we're doubling every year. So when you scale something, I think we all know about that, right? Your methods need to change.
Yeah, and also some other things need to change. And as the filthy capitalist on the stage here, as Mark would put it, so it takes money to make this happen. And I think what is also true is that so there's two things that's true. One is we've been incredibly blessed to have E10 be a major partner for this in the past. And that's been amazing. They're going to continue to be involved in the future. But we want this to represent different sectors of the involvement of the organizations in the room. So yes, there's Bible translation, but Bible translation orgs need to be collaborating with digital discipleship, digital evangelism orgs, and both of those orgs need to be collaborating with industry partners, and all of those need to be collaborating with academic partners. And really, to be quite blunt, I know we all don't like talking about money in the room, so I'll do it because I'm used to feeling uncomfortable. It takes people to put their checkbook down and commit to something to really create a change in the both demographics and the structure and the involvement of an organization or an event. So we really don't want to say, okay, well, Bible translation is going to foot the bill and the rest of us kind of like hop on, this is cool. Yeah, great. First of all, the scale is changing, as Yvonne talked about. The scale is changing, and with that comes more needs financially, but also that creates opportunities for other portions of those organizations that are involved, for other sectors like industry, for other funders, for other collectives like we've heard about, to be involved and put a stake in the ground and say, when someone comes to the Missional AI website and sees who's backing it, they see support from, yes, Bible translation, but also from orgs not involved with Bible translation, but wanting to be collaborative with Bible translation, and not only missional orgs, but industry partners, and not only industry partners, but academic partners. And so, my appeal on behalf of my friends here on stage is within the next month. So it takes like 18 months to do a really good job at planning one of these events. So we're already behind for next year. So we really need to figure out, one, where is this thing going to happen next year? And two, who is going to be supportive of this next year at a larger scale that we're expecting, and in a professional way that is going to be able to meet some of those aspirational goals of involving more international participants, of involving more industry partners. And so our appeal is within the next month, if you want to support this more than attending, if you felt if you felt the benefits of this, I kind of view it as one of these things like, hey, you could let Missional AI die, and everyone could spend their own funds on engineering their own solutions, and we could duplicate everything, right? Or we could come together every year and form great collaborations and actually put some funds to that would actually have a multiplicative effect across what we're trying to do. So yeah, that's my appeal on behalf of my brothers and sisters here, and I'll be forthright about that. That's essentially the ask. Within the next month, we need to figure that out. So here's what you can do. Joshua has kindly volunteered to be a point of contact. So it's easy. You have one point of contact, the AI Collective and Joshua. If you have any interest in being supportive, and also being supportive in a variety of ways. It doesn't have to necessarily just be a sponsor, but there's venue opportunities. There's maybe scholarship opportunities for getting more people there. There's opportunities to sponsor maybe, like if you have an idea, hey, what if we did like an ideathon or a hackathon at the event, and I want to sponsor that because that's what I care about. We want to hear those ideas, so please come to Joshua with all of those. So that was my entrance into the money talk. Anything you would like to clarify?
So I was just thinking, if prediction card doesn't work out, you would make a good prosperity gospel preacher. So.
I would say we have a few ideas, but we don't have, a solid commitment or a solid place that really fits the bill. But we would love connections, ideas for potential venues. Not especially.
So the question is if we would be open to a match. Okay.
Pardon me. Would you all be open to a matching opportunity where a private individual could put up that match, one portion to be for the location and the management and the food and the toilet paper, the other portion to provide scholarships for the key strategic other world leaders to come, whether it's business travel, accommodations, for some, depending the location, they may welcome an in-home experience. So to create that relationship, but to create money, no object, let's get the right people here. And my prediction is it's not going to just double, it'll probably triple.
Yeah, I would say we are definitely open to any of that. So matching grants, for sure. And yes, like we want to include the leaders who need to be here and should be here, and we want this to remain accessible. We want it to not be just something that is only available if you're in North America. So,
and even you'll see the price for just attending the event has been really very low, and we would like to keep it that way. We can up it to $500-600, but then we know we will exclude a lot of people. And even when we look at venue, what we do consider is, can we get some affordable accommodation around the venue to really make it as accessible for people, irrespective of their ability to pay for this, or their ministry to pay for it. So yes, everything that we can get to help with that, I think will help us stay true to the ethos of this and make it as widely accessible to all.
Well, I first of all want to say thank you so much for this. I'm not a technological person, but I think I've been advocating for such a thing, and I want to be an evangelist for getting church people to understand this entire AI world. My question is, are you open to membership fees? That might not be an acceptable thing, but are you open into that? Because at least some people can contribute towards this if I'm a member. And what are the benefits? You got to just think through all of that.
yeah, we've not thought about membership fees, but I think, again, we want to provide value, and we want it to be a valuable experience for this community. So,
and I think it's a great idea, but it then comes back to administration again, is how to manage that. And at the moment, the capacity issue is one of the main things that we really need and struggle with.
So I know people have flights, so I appreciate all of you staying in your seats to hear us discuss this. I think I'm encouraged even by this response and your all's enthusiasm. This is a huge answer to prayer, even just what has happened here. God is so good, and God is at work in this community. And so we appreciate you letting us exercise our faithful risk-taking to be transparent with you all and to share how you can collaborate and really join arms with us. So thank you so much, and I'll pass it off to Joshua to close out.
So, yeah, this is it. This is the end. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for such a great few days. I really don't take it lightly, the people who've traveled. Last I checked on Friday last week, 25 countries were represented. So I think that probably went up, and maybe people I didn't know about. But yeah, there's a real sacrifice that I think many people in the room made to get here, and I just want to say thanks for being here and being fully present here. So just a few more thank yous very quickly. I want to say thank you to the wider community online. We had hundreds of people online throughout these last 3 days. So thank you for being involved. I would say to the deaf community, thank you for being a part of it this year. We were really grateful to have you be a key part of this. So thank you. I want to say thank you to our interpreters. Incredible amount of work that they did. Really grateful for all of it. Say to our partners and sponsors, thank you. I don't know if you have the slide, Joe, but if you could put it up. I just want to say thank you to each of these partners. They really made this year possible, and I just want to say thank you for your sacrificial giving for this, and to each of you. I just, again, from the bottom of our hearts, we would just want to say thank you for being a part of this community, for being passionate about this intersection of artificial intelligence and faith. Stay connected to us on Slack, on our email list. There will be announcements about where the next summit will be, what the next summit will be. And I would just say one last pitch to stay connected with the AI Collective, kind of community, everything basically between these conferences. We really want to have that be a community. So safe flights. Thanks again, and yeah, God bless you all.